32, cool. Good evening, everyone. We're honored to welcome this year's elementary school Mayor of the Day winner. Woo! And it's Hannah Kirshner. She's going to call our meeting to order. She has the gavel. She can hit it as many times as she wants. I told her, whatever you want, you're the mayor. So please call our meeting to order.
I call to order the Mountain View City Council meeting of October 28th, 2025.
And I think before we get to our second Mayor for a Day winner, did you want to share a little bit about the essay that you submitted, or is that okay? Just talk right into there.
When I wrote my essay, I wanted to give a bit of what I felt when I wanted to include everybody and treat them all with kindness. And when I mean everybody everywhere.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. Have you sit down. And then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're honored to welcome our middle school winner, Ishan Kaushal. Ishan, will you please come up to the lectern and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Just talk right into it, because it's on TV too. Okay, so I'll just ask everybody.
Could everybody please stand up? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will now, the city clerk will now take attendance by roll call.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Hicks.
Here.
Councilmember McAllister.
Yep.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Here.
Councilmember Showalter.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ramos.
Here.
Mayor Kamei.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It's such an exciting meeting today. And as such, we have an announcement. The city is seeking volunteers to serve for the following upcoming vacancies: 1 seat on our Parks and Rec Commission, 1 seat on the Senior Advisory Committee, and 3 seats on the Downtown Committee. Specifically, applicants who are property owners in the downtown or representatives of businesses in the downtown. Please visit mountainview.gov/BCC to apply by 5 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. Interviews will be held on the evening of November 17th. We'll get back to the fun. We're going to move on to item 3, which is our presentations. Please note these are presentations only. The City Council will not take any action. Public comment will occur after the presentation items. If you'd like to speak on these items in person, please submit a blue speaker card to the City Clerk now. And for our mayors who kicked off our meeting, we actually have recognition for both of them. So I'm going to head back down to the lectern. Thank you. So our Mayor for a Day essay contest ran through the month of September, and elementary and middle school age Mountain View residents wrote about one problem they would solve if they were mayor for a day. We decided to do an elementary school and a middle school age winner that were selected. This is something that I did when I was mayor in the pandemic in 2021, so it's so nice to be able to do this in person. And as we had earlier, we are happy to have Hannah back to join us as the elementary school winner. She attends Therkoff Elementary School and is in the 5th grade. And I know you kicked us off and you told us a little bit about your essay. Did you have anything more you wanted to share with everyone? All right, no? Well then let's take a picture, maybe the two of us, and then we can invite your family. How about that? And we'll invite the whole council to stand as we present it to you. Awesome, thanks. All right, and for item 3.2, we're going to have Ishan back for the middle school recognition. Ishan attends Graham Middle School and is in the 7th grade. Ishan, if you want to join us at the lectern. And I know you're going to share a little bit about your essay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this honor. Thank you to Mayor Kamei and the members of the City Council. Thank you also to my parents and my brothers, David and Jan, for always supporting me. I am fortunate to have lived in Mountain View for all 12 years of my life. I went to Imai Elementary School, and I'm now a 7th grader at Graham Middle School. This city is a very special place, and even with all the excitement about technology and AI, I think it's still very important to appreciate all the beauty and opportunities in the real world all around us. We are very lucky to live here. If I were mayor for the day, I would rename our city from Mountain View to Mountain Go. We shouldn't just be viewers of our wonderful city. We should all go out and live it. We should be present, explore, make new friends. We should look up from our screens and devices and explore all the amazing parks and places our city has to offer, like Cuesta and Rangsdorf, Shoreline and Castro, where we can connect with the people we care about. This city is a very special place for me, my family, and my friends, and I'm so happy I had the chance to celebrate that in my essay. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thanks to our mayors for a day. I think on the council and I think working in city government, we talk a lot about who we do it for, and hearing from Hannah and Ishan their ideas of what they would do to make our community better really grounds us in our work and reminds us of what we're doing. And I think whether it's talking about kindness, which we celebrate as part of our Magical Bridge Playground, right? We talk about being kindness ambassadors. We have a kindness ambassador in you. And we talk about how we want to get outside and we want to create all these amazing opportunities. And I think Ishan's essay about Mountain Go really touched on that. And his essay talked about, looking up and not looking down, and so connecting. So I want to thank them. I want to thank their families. We're going to do a couple more presentations, and then you are welcome to enjoy the rest of your nights. Okay, just want to make sure. And so as we move on to item 3.3, we have our 2025 Beacon Leadership and Innovation Award. We're happy to be joined via Zoom this evening by Nikita Sinha, Program Manager for the Institute for Local Government, to present the 2025 Beacon Leadership and Innovation Award to the City of Mountain View. I think we have a brief presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm going to share my screen just briefly. I have just 2 slides, which hopefully you're able to see this now. My name is Nikita Sinha. I'm a program manager for the Institute for Local Government, or ILG. ILG is the nonprofit education and training affiliate of the League of California Cities, along with the California State Association of Counties and the California Special Districts Association. In 2010, ILG launched the Beacon program as a recognition program focused on acknowledging the many steps local governments were proactively taking to address energy efficiency, climate change, greenhouse gas reduction, and so much more. In 2021, Beacon introduced new award categories to celebrate the efforts of local governments to implement collaborative, inclusive, and equitable climate resilience and adaptation programming in their communities. The Leadership and Innovation Award recognizes local governments for leadership in climate resilience and adaptation, cross-agency collaboration in climate adaptation, equity and engagement in sustainability and climate, innovation in clean transportation, and innovation in clean energy. We're so excited to celebrate Mountain View as the 2025 awardee for innovation in clean energy for the Day Worker Center Zero Emission Landscaping Training and Tool Lending Program. We were really impressed in reading the application that the city, by providing trainings and incentives to help day workers transition to zero emission landscaping tools, have advanced both climate goals and community health. So on behalf of the Institute for Local Government, I'd like to congratulate the City of Mountain View.
Great. Thank you. And hopefully you can see us. The award traveled safely from Long Beach. So thank you to Vice Mayor Ramos. And I don't know if we should thank Councilmember McAllister. I think probably the Vice Mayor brought it back safely. Is that right? But we do have our Chief Sustainability Officer, Danielle Lee, and we have the Executive Director of our Day Worker Center, Maria Marroquin, here as well to join us and say a few words. So I invite you to the lectern. You have to come this side so they can see you, or else you're back.
Good evening, Mayor and honorable council members. I'm so pleased to be here this evening alongside Maria Marroquin, the Executive Director of the Day Worker Center of Mountain View, for this recognition of Mountain View's climate leadership. The Zero Emission Landscaping Training and Tool Lending Library truly represents the best of how we are addressing sustainability at the local level. We're working collaboratively across sectors to make improvements in everyday life while keeping our eyes on the long-term ambitious goals the city has set for sustainability. We're excited to be building on this partnership with the Day Worker Center and look forward to future collaboration.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. Honors and be next to you, Danielle, and for the wonderful work that the city is doing and the opportunity to join in this effort. So besides all the benefits that you already mentioned and we have been enjoying, is behind the idea to create jobs for the workers that is really important in our community. We have been working in the Day Worker Center for the last 29 years, and we have been building a really solid community, and we thank you a lot for that. So from my personal, my gratitude, and also from the workers and their families, thank you so much, and really an honor, and just strengthen our commitment that I call you to join us, because everybody needs to contribute to the betterment of our world. Thank you so much again, and thank you so much for your support.
This was presented to the city at the League of California Cities annual conference. That's what we talked about. It coming safely. Thank you, Nikita, for joining us virtually. So we'll move on to our last presentation item. It's item 3.4, Breast Cancer Awareness Month Proclamation. We're happy to be joined this evening by Sergeant Chris Vigil, Community Services Officer Jody Pierce, Deputy Fire Chief Brian Jones, and the personnel from Fire Station 1 to accept this proclamation. So why doesn't everyone come, and then we'll have our speakers join us at the lectern. So I think the people who are receiving, if you want to come here, and then I can read the proclamation, is that all right? So we're fortunate to have members of both our police department and our fire department here to accept the proclamation. And it reads, whereas breast cancer is the second most common cancer in women and one of the leading causes of cancer-related death, and breast cancer is about 100 times more common in women than men, and whereas early detection through regular screenings and increased public awareness significantly improves survival rates and outcomes, making education and access to care essential components in the fight against breast cancer. And whereas during the month of October, with bold pink ribbons displayed proudly in the community, family, friends, and neighbors stand in solidarity with breast cancer survivors and reaffirm our commitment to raising awareness of this disease. And whereas Breast Cancer Awareness Month serves as an opportunity to increase awareness of the disease and to encourage individuals to have a plan to detect the disease in its early stages. It is vital that those affected by breast cancer have access to quality, affordable care, and that research of all forms of breast cancer continues to be vigorously supported. Now, therefore, I, Ellen Kamei, and my mayors for a day of the City of Mountain View, along with my colleagues on the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Mountain View, and invite the community to participate in activities that raise awareness of breast cancer prevention. And I'll let you both say a few words, and then we'll present the proclamation.
Thank you, Council. On behalf of the Fire Department, I'd just like to thank the Council for joining our effort in participating in National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And everyone in this room has probably been touched by cancer or breast cancer in one form or another. And we hope that these efforts help raise awareness for the importance of early breast cancer detection.
Hello, everyone, Mayor, Council, everybody here that took the time to come out and support this cause. Future leaders of Mountain View, it's great to see you here at an event like this. We're just very grateful to be able to share this day with everyone here.
Thank you. All right, so I'll invite my colleagues from the council to maybe come around up front. I know we all wore our shirts today, and I think this is an opportunity where we can congratulate Chief Jones, right? And haven't had the opportunity to see you in person yet. And to also celebrate, I believe this is the first time that our Mountain View Police Department, while we have participated in the Pink Patch Project, well, you'll see on uniforms, I think it's the first time that you're actually able to wear the entire uniform, which is really great and helps spread awareness, and I think is a conversation starter in our community about what's going on. All right, so Andrew, you dictate how you'd like us to arrange ourselves.
Want to be in the photo, you gotta be a lot closer. My wide angle, but it's not that wide.
Do our mayors want to join? Our mayors afraid they can join? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Please join.
You guys want to get in, you're gonna have to kind of go more on that side. Or if you guys are gonna do like all the way over there, yeah. I think you're gonna have to go out there as well. Are you sure?
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. That concludes our presentation items. So that concludes our presentation items. Would any member of the council like to say a few words? Councilmember Showalter.
Yes, I really enjoyed all of these presentations. They're for such wonderful causes. But one thing that I want to bring to everyone's attention is the program for zero emission landscaping equipment. This is something that is so important on so many levels. For one thing, the emissions that come out of gas leaf blowers blow right into the face of the people that are operating those leaf blowers. So it's really an environmental justice issue to make sure that our residents who are doing lawn work in our area have safe equipment. And of course, those emissions, while they don't, generally harm people personally who aren't using it so much, they raise our emission rate, and collectively they're negative. So I just want to say how important this is for the health of the people who use that equipment. And I'm really, really glad to see that that we're making this transition, because it requires some extra money and some extra training, and learning to change is always a little difficult, but this is really for a good cause. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Hicks.
Well, we always have wonderful opening ceremonies, but this one particularly touched me. All three of them, I have to say, the mayors for the day, particularly the mayor who talked about Mountain View Go and putting down your screens and getting out in the real world. I say that all the time. He said it much better than I do. I won't go into detail in the second one because Councilmember Showalter did such a great job. But it encompasses a little bit of everything, right? Jobs, environmental justice, sustainability, and maybe most important to me, quiet in the neighborhood. Yeah. and then the last one, I have to say, I really appreciate, because my members of my family and myself have had breast cancer, and early detection is really important. So I value bringing that up. So thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you so much. All right, well, that I don't see any other members in the queue. So we'll now take public comment if there is any. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on the presentation items listed on the agenda? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or submit a blue speaker card to the city clerk. I'm not seeing in person, but I am seeing virtual. So we'll take virtual public comment, and each speaker will have 3 minutes. And Ting Ting Zhang.
Hi, good evening. I'm against pickleball courts in Questa Park.
So we're on the presentation items. Maybe you want to speak on item 5 when we do public comment?
Okay, no problem.
Okay, no problem. We'll call on you shortly. Thank you. All right, so I'm not seeing any other hands in the queue, so we'll close public comment and we'll move on to our consent calendar. These items will be approved by one motion unless any member of the council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration. If an item is pulled from the consent calendar, it will be considered separately following approval of the balance of the consent calendar. If you would like to speak on these items or the next item, oral communication on non-agenda items in person, please submit a blue speaker card to the city clerk now. Would any member of the council like to pull an item? Councilmember Showalter.
Well, I don't really want to pull an item, but as is my custom, I'd like to make some comments. First, item 4.1, that's a G9 policy. This is the second reading for the zoning code amendments that were discussed on October 14th related to the gatekeeper program. One change is to not require a complete set of floor plans for gatekeeper applications anymore, and the second is to exempt zoning changes that are done to achieve consistency with the general plan. I think these both move in the right direction of making this program move a little more smoothly. So that's good. The next one is I wanted to talk about is item 4.6, the Ringsdorf construction acceptance. Boy, this has been a long time coming. The people who have worked on this project know what I'm saying. Kudos to everyone who saw this complex project through. By putting in an all-electric pool of this size, we were really pushing the boundaries of this technology. And we paid some costs for it. It's really a tribute to our sustainability efforts that we did this, but it wasn't easy. It's not often that you see a project that has over 30 change orders. That represents a lot of things that had to be fixed as you went along, and we did. We fixed every single one of them, and now the community is enjoying the pool. And the other thing that I think is so remarkable is that on a project of this magnitude, we did it almost on budget. It was just $300,000 over the original expectation, and on a $22 million project, that is a very good record. So kudos to the staff that are responsible for that. And for the rest of us, we need to get out there and swim. It's good for us, right? And it's heated, so we can do it all year long. And then the final one I wanted to talk about is item 4.7. That's the amendment to our new memorandum of understanding between the City of Mountain View and the City of Sunnyvale relating to the operation of a materials recovery and transfer station. And I want to talk about this one because we all get trash service. It's an important city service that we all benefit from, and we are all impacted by how well this system works. For years, we've been following our zero waste policy, which is designed to get our contributions to the landfill as low as possible. That's why each and every week, all of us are putting lawn clippings into one container and trash in another, and then every other week we put our recycling out. We have a collaboration with the City of Sunnyvale to sort our trash and accept our recyclables. We do this at a facility in Sunnyvale that's called the Smart Station. This is one of those acronyms that's a little tortured but fun. It's the Sunnyvale Materials Recovery and Transfer Station. So that's where you get the SMART and then the station. Okay, and it accepts garbage and recycling materials from both of our communities. The START station, though, the original one's 30 years old, so it needs to be rebuilt. And there have been plans have been in the mix for working on this, I know, for quite a long time. Our staffs of both communities have been working on it. And now we're to the point of figuring out some of the details related to the financing. And that's what this item is here in front of us, is to approve some of the financing arrangements that have been made. And so I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, because I think that we sometimes forget about the just background city services that we get, like trash and recycling, that we all contribute to. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McAllister.
I just had some questions on 4.2 and 4.5.
Perhaps you can ask your questions and then the appropriate staff will make their way down.
Okay. On 4.2, there was we were talking about the fees that is collected on 4.2, the mixed parking in lieu fees, and there was a comment from one of the answers that those in lieu fees are to be used to provide new parking, public parking. and that they need to be used particularly within 5 years. Where's the status of new parking garage in downtown Mountain View?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Jennifer Ng, the Public Works Director. So we are looking at building a new parking structure in parking lot 5 in downtown. The beginning phases of that project is starting at the beginning of 2026. So we'll be starting with writing scope of work, putting out RFP to get a consultant on board at the beginning of the new year.
Is there funding appropriated for this?
We do have some parking in lieu downtown. I think I messed up the order of that. Downtown parking in lieu fees that will be attributed to this project. Yes.
Will that be sufficient?
It will be augmented. So the overall cost of the new parking garage will be augmented by other funding sources. The total cost of the parking garage exceeds how much parking in lieu fees that we have in the piggy bank.
Are there other, I mean, since we're supposed to use these funds within 5 years, and I'm sure we're probably running short on some of the already collected in lieu fees, is once a parking structure is started, does the timeline still consider it 5 years? Or do we have to return the money if there's nothing put up for that?
I don't know the specific details on that. I'm wondering if finance knows, or Dawn maybe?
Thank you. Good evening. Dawn Cameron, Assistant City Manager. So in general, the rule is that the funds need to be used or committed to a project within 5 years. So as long as the parking in lieu fees are committed to projects such as a Lot 5 parking structure, we are meeting the requirements.
Okay, thank you. On 4.5, professional service agreement, and I apologize for asking these questions, but when you ask a question, they give you an answer, then you got to follow up with this one. So, the building division has 5 in-house staff for plan check. And we're going to reach out to others to help out. How did we come up with 5? Because I hear people are talking about delays or system doesn't work. How did we come up with 5? Are we fully staffed in that particular department?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Christian Murdoch, Community Development Director. We are currently fully staffed in terms of city staff positions related to plan check and inspection services. Historically, the city has not had in-house building permit plan check staff, and so that's actually an innovation within recent years to bring those 2 building division plan check staff in-house for single family and smaller commercial related improvements. The city has had fire inspection and plan check staff in-house for a number of years. How we resulted at 3, I can't speak to based on historic practice, but that has been the number for quite a while.
So are we, how are the 5 handling the projects? Are they coming out in a reasonable amount of time, or is there, once somebody submits a plans, are they supposed to be turned over and reviewed within 30 days?
So there are differing timelines depending on the type of project. For example, accessory dwelling units have very short timelines for review and approval, whereas other projects have longer timelines. It is a work in progress. I'll acknowledge that in terms of our plan review timelines. However, having the augmentation of third-party consultant plan checking services does allow us to prioritize certain reviews and accomplish them in a more efficient manner.
Is there any plans to augment those 5 to bring on more on in-house?
Not at this time. I think I feel comfortable with our in-house plan check capacity, and having a variety of third-party consultant plan check services allows us to push those plan reviews out to the appropriate consultant services to meet our business needs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thank you. All right, I don't see any other hands in the queue. So now we'll move on to public comment. If anyone would like to, from the public joining us virtually or in person, would like to provide comment on these items, please raise your hand in Zoom or submit a blue speaker card to the city clerk. I think that this is a virtual speaker. Raquel, you have 3 minutes. So we're not on public comment number 5 yet, public comment. We're on item 4, so it's public comment for the consent items, just in case you were wanting to do general public comment. Okay, I saw the hand lower, so maybe you're wanting to do general public comment under item 5. So we'll circle back with you. Yes, okay. We'll circle back. I'll bring the item back for council action and note that a motion to approve the consent calendar should also include reading the title of the ordinance and resolutions attached to consent calendar items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. City Attorney Logue.
Did you have a statement you wanted to make?
Oh, yes, thank you. Before we take our vote, I wanted to share that I'm recusing myself from voting on consent calendar item 4.4 due to my employment with the Foothill De Anza Community College District. Thank you. All right, and we have a motion by Councilmember Showalter and a second by Councilmember Hicks.
Okay, so I move the approval of the consent calendar. Item 4.1, adopt an ordinance of the City of Mountain View amending Chapter 36 zoning of the Mountain View City Code to update review procedures for private development applications with legislative amendments to zoning, general plan, and precise plans, and finding that the amendments are exempt from review under the California Environmental Quality Act to be read in title only, further reading waived. Item 4.2, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View amending City of Mountain View Resolution Number 18935, approving a mixed-use addition at 194 to 198 Castro Street to modify condition of approval number 65 regarding parking and lieu fees to be read in title only, further reading waived. Item 4.3, adopt a resolution of intention of the City Council of the City of Mountain View to vacate public easements at 749 West El Camino Real to be read in title only, further reading waived, and set a date for a public hearing to consider the vacation for November 18th, 2025. Item 4.4, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View authorizing the city manager or designee to amend the below market rate regulatory agreement between the City of Mountain View Owner, LLC, Mountain View Westman School District, to add Foothill De Anza Community College District as a party to the agreement, and to make other conforming amendments to be read in title only, further reading waived.
Great, so we have a motion and a second, and I'll be voting and then just recusing from item 4.4. So let's vote. All right, and that passes unanimously. So now we're on to item 5, oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic within the city council's subject matter jurisdiction for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the council from acting on non-agenda items. If you'd like to speak on this item or the next item in person, please submit a blue speaker card to the city clerk now. Okay, we have public comment in person, and then we'll move to virtual. And each speaker will have 3 minutes. And the first speaker is Malia. And then we have Man Salgado, Yari Navarro, and then Alexis Arica. So if you want to maybe stand and get in line on the side. And then let's see, after Alexis is Leticia Morales, and then Albert Jeans, then Dylan Rich. That looks like everyone in person. All right. And I think the
Okay, yeah, clock is on.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Well, good evening, Mayor Kamei, Vice Mayor Ramos, and council members. My name is Malia Pires. I'm a 19-year resident of the City of Mountain View, Executive Director and Board Member of Reach SV, and Board Member of United Effort Organization. And both organizations serve the most vulnerable residents in the city. And I'm here today to for 2 reasons. 1, to say thank you, and 2, to share a personal testimony and story from my heart. And So thank you. Thank you for the services and exhaustive efforts that the city has made to support our unhoused neighbors. Living in the overnight shelter for women and children, which recently opened. For those that live in the safe parking lots at Houses of Faith and in the larger lots. And then also for providing opportunities for organizations like Hope's Corner and United Effort Organization to work together in the downtown parking lot. So I just wanted to say thank you, and also thank you to the city manager's office for faithfully gathering the CBO organizations month after month to convene us, to collaborate together in partnership, and to think of innovative ways that we can serve our vulnerable neighbors. And on the personal story side, I had an opportunity many years ago. I was one of those residents or persons that really thought that RV dwellers were drug addicts, mentally ill, possibly trafficking. And I had the opportunity, Sandra Esparza of Cafecito de Aroma con Justicia, she invited me to go out door knocking. And I happened to go with Emily, who is sitting here, and she was out there on behalf of Lucas Ramirez. She wanted to get a boots on the ground, bird's eye view of what's really happening. This is before Lucas was on, I think he was running for council at that time. And I was quite shocked. So I have 4 kids, 30 down to 16. And when we went door knocking, Emily and I were at the end of the line. And when the people opened their doors and there were families with children, I said, oh my God, these are kids that my kids go to school with. This is not what I think. It's not what I thought. And it completely changed the trajectory of Reach's work. We have faithfully been serving our unhoused neighbors, bringing provision and resources, but not just, we're not doing it. We formally launched a LEAB this year, so a Lived Experience Advisory Board. We've always worked with them and asked, how can we help? What do you need? They've always gone with us door to door, bringing provision. They've been the voices that we've heard. We don't think we know what anybody needs, but we've formally launched a group, and some of them are going to be here to share with you. So I want to say thank you, and good evening.
Great, thank you. So next is Mon Salgado. ¿Tú vas a traducir para ella? Okay, so nosotros vamos a poner 6 minutos aquí. So we'll put up the 6 minutes because we'll have the translation. So hay tiempo. So. Muchísimas gracias.
Buenas noches, concilio. Mi nombre es Macruz Salgado. Tengo viviendo aquí como 30 años que ya me siento en casa aquí en Monteview. Y por cuestiones de renta muy alta, me tuve que ir a Crisanto a vivir en las calles. Pero doy gracias de estar viviendo en un lote seguro, de tener todos los servicios, de tener...
¿Puedo hablar muy cerca aquí? Okay. Sí, por favor.
Okay. Doy gracias a la ciudad por tener un lote seguro. Antes yo vivía en la calle, por la Crisanto, pero doy gracias a la ciudad por darnos un lote seguro para mí. Y estoy muy agradecida de vivir ahí, de darnos todos los servicios que tenemos. Nosotros tenemos agua, tenemos baños, tenemos lavandería, y estoy muy contenta y muy agradecida con ustedes. Gracias. Es todo lo que puedo. Para mí es para que sigan las demás personas.
Muchísimas
Eso
gracias.
nomás lo quería yo decir.
Muchísimas gracias.
Doy muchísimas gracias.
Sí, usted también.
Good evening. My name is Maria Cruz. I have been living here for 30 years. I used to be homeless and also because of the augmentation in rents. I went to live in Crisanto in the streets, but thanks to all of you right now, I have the opportunity to live in a safe parking lot. I just want to say that I'm thankful to the city because, as I mentioned before, I used to live in the streets, and now I receive services such as water, such as restrooms. We have restrooms and laundry rooms. And again, I just want to thank all of you for your help in this.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Yari Navarro.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's, you honorable counselor and mayor and councilors. I'm a little nervous, I'm sorry. My name's Yaritza, and I've been living in Mountain View for around 9 to 8 years. Before I was in the safe parking lot, I was living in the street next to Rainsurf Park. I'm really grateful with you guys for providing me with the essential necessities like bathroom, a place to shower, a place where I could feel safe with my mom. And I'm really grateful for this because my mom has been suffering from epilepsy for around 5 years. And it's been really hard on me and on her to be able, my mom to be able to provide me with a decent space. My mom's probably the most hard-working woman I've seen in my life. Even though she has been through a lot, she's here, and even though she's sick, she has provided me with the essentials, and I would really like to thank her a lot. And she's actually in the audience. My mom lived in a van for around 2 years before we got an RV, and it's a journey that as a teenager has really affected me because I've always asked myself, why can I have what other people have? But then I remember that life is a journey, and in the journey there's going to be things that you have to overcome, and I really like and I'm just grateful, and I would like to give back to my community in a few years. You guys might see me maybe in a Camino hospital, and if you guys see me and you guys want to say hi, then it would be an honor to have you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexis, Arika.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Alexis Arika. I've been living in Mountain View for almost 3 years. I would like to say that living in a safe parking lot is better than living outside in the road, because as I was growing up in a trailer, me and my family was finding ways to get into a lot, and we met this one police officer who helped us get into a safe RV parking lot. We moved from Hayward to Mountain View, and I would like to say that I'm very grateful that me and my family got into that safe RV parking lot. And I am also very grateful because in that lot, it provides showers for us to use, laundry, and gives us a lot of food. And we already met a lot of people in that lot, and they feel like family to us already. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is Leticia Morales. So we'll just put 6 minutes up just in case. Thanks.
Hello.
Hola.
Good evening. Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Leticia Morales. Yo vengo aquí a darle gracias a ustedes, a la ciudad de Mountain View.
Good evening. My name is Leticia Morales, and I'm here to thank the city of Mountain View.
Yo vivo aquí hace 20 años. Yo trabajé por una compañía 13 años y muy fuerte, pero sin excusa ni razón perdí mi trabajo. Y por esa razón mi hijo no terminó la universidad. Y en el apartamento donde vivíamos, por no tener renta para pagar, nos corrieron.
I've been living in Mountain View for 20 years, and I worked 13 years really hard at a company, and for no reason or explanation, I lost my job without any excuse. And that's why my son couldn't finish college. And due to rent,
por esa razón nos perdimos el lugar donde vivir y nos fuimos a vivir a la calle. Estuvimos aquí en Castro, en la calle de Castro. Después, gracias a la comunidad, pusieron un shelter. Yo fui ahí, estuve toda la temporada de octubre a abril. Y la otra oportunidad que yo he recibido es que estoy en un shelter ahora, segura, porque cuando viví en las calles yo sufrí de un ataque. Mero enfrente de la policía llegaron ahí a atacarme unas personas. Y gracias por todo eso y ahora estoy en un lugar seguro.
And due to the high cost of rent, we lose the apartment where we lived, and we ended up living on the streets on Castro. And thanks to the community, they had a community shelter. I was there for October and through April. Now I'm in another shelter, safe. Because before, when I used to live in the streets, I suffered from an attack or an assault from, even in front of the police station, from some people, and now I feel safe in the shelter.
Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next in-person speaker is Albert Jeans, and then Dylan Rich.
Yeah, she's getting a slide up. I'd just like to ask a favor of you guys. When you're speaking in the microphone, try to get close to it. I don't know what's wrong with these. They're not that sensitive. When you're listening online, a lot of times you can't hear what you're saying if you're like speaking off to the side like this or something like that.
I do my best, Albert, to remind people.
You're always actually pretty good. I won't name names, but some people are difficult to hear. Yeah, I'm actually speaking on the RV issue as well. They're talking about the safe parking lot. I'm just talking about RVs on the street, which is a little different. So yeah, this morning I took another account because they temporarily disallowed parking on part of Terabella, so I thought I'd see what happened. Next slide, please. And to my surprise, the total number of RVs was the highest it's ever been, 297 on our streets. And so maybe it would have been even higher if Terabella was, kind of fully parked. Maybe some of those people temporarily left for some other area. But yeah, this number keeps growing. Next slide, please. And you might have heard that Cupertino recently just enacted a ban on street parking for RVs overnight. This was their problem was around the Target store there, which I go to almost weekly. And all of a sudden, this week when I went, they were gone. So I looked around, yeah, sure enough. A month ago, they decided to ban overnight parking RVs. It took about a month to implement it, and it happened. And so, next slide, please. We have to think about what's going to happen. I mean, Mountain View has about 300 RVs. San Francisco and San Jose each have about 1,000, but their population is over about 10 times Mountain View's. So Mountain View is just carrying an outsized load, it seems. I mean, this is a regional problem. Everybody has to chip in and do something. I really feel for these people. This is no way to live. And I kind of feel bad that Mountain View is, in a way, enabling that and letting them live under these conditions for years and years. I actually happened to talk to somebody this morning in Palo Alto, near one of their RV areas. And he had lived in a condo there for several years and also worked nearby. And he said he had seen one RV there for 8 years. He saw the kids grow up from elementary school to high school. I mean, that's just no way to grow up. And this is in Palo Alto, of all places. And so, we do have to figure out some way to get these people off the streets into proper housing. And the businesses and stuff are suffering too. There's just no way to run a city and allowing people to live on the streets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dylan?
Thank you, council members. I'd also just like to publicly, I know the other previous speakers are not here, but I'd like to thank them. It's not easy to come up here and speak, and I'd like to thank Mountain View again for the safe parking lot. I am in support of that. It definitely has helped quite a few people. I'm Dylan Rich. I'm the director at Palo Alto Prep. I just wanted to continue. I was here 2 weeks ago, but give reminders about the sightline difficulties that we're having at Palo Alto Prep. You have to walk about 10 feet into the street before on Independence before you can start seeing traffic. Within the last 2 weeks, I personally had a close call, and I know what to look for in terms of just looking for cars. It just happened to be someone was speeding and someone was on their cell phone and they ran the stop sign. It's something where a student would just have to be on their cell phone, not paying attention while they're crossing the street and not being able to see that car who's not paying attention to them. So just a reminder, please take action on this issue. You're the only ones who can make change here. We've said it before, but it's not a matter if there will be an accident, but when there will be an accident. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our in-person public comment. We'll move on to virtual. Raquel?
Hi, I was trying to speak on 4.4, but then I was booted off of Zoom, so that's the topic that I want to discuss.
Okay. We tried to have you unmute and then your hand went down, so we thought it was the other item. Let me just turn to the city attorney and just make sure that...
It's okay if you'd like to let her speak.
Sure. Okay, you can speak now.
Okay. So my name is, good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Raquel, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Los Altos Affordable Housing Support Network. We support adding Foothill De Anza Community College District to the eligible employee groups. However, before expanding outward, it is important to ensure the program is functioning equitably for the city's own workforce. When council approved the BMR agreement in 2022, the agreement stated that city reserve units are for income qualified households with at least one city employee. It also states that if any administrative guidelines conflict with the agreement itself controls. However, after approval, Human Resources created an internal eligibility definition that excludes the part-time under 1,000-hour city staff from qualifying. Again, it's an internal document that the HR created excluding under 1,000-hour city staff employees. This definition does not appear in the agreement, was not included in the council staff report, and has never been reviewed publicly. There is no record of council directing staff to limit eligibility in this way. These employees are part of the city workforce. Under 1,000-hour staff support community events, recreational programs, building operations, and help staff city facilities year after year, including the city council meeting. Yet they are being excluded from the workforce housing intended to support the people who actually work here. Before expanding eligibility to additional agencies, it's important to ensure that the city staff are not being excluded from a program designed to support the city workforce. Expanding outward while continuing to exclude positions of our own workforce sends an unintended message, and I believe this can be corrected. There's also concerns about outreach. The third-party administrator, Housekeys, has closed its main office and routes call through a call center. The public rental listings have not been updated on the website, with some still dated from 2024. This makes it difficult for city employees and the public to know what units are actually available. So the request tonight is please direct staff to apply the eligibility criteria to all city staff, including under 1,000-hour employees as intended. Workforce housing only works if the workforce can actually access it. City staff should be considered first, all city staff, exactly as the agreement intended. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next public comment speaker is Ting Ting Zhang.
Hi, good evening. I am against pickleball courts in Quest Park. Quest Park is a peaceful place, not only for the residents nearby, but also for all the residents in Mountain View, and as well as all the wild animals, birds, plants. It's their home. If we bring pickleball courts there, they will no longer be peaceful. So recently I read an article from Palo Alto Online about the pickleball courts in Michelle Park in Palo Alto. And in this article, community members said, you go in the park, you hear click, click, click all the time. It doesn't feel like a park anymore. I hope Quest Park's future won't be like that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment. So we'll move on to item 6, public hearings. Item 6.1 is our downtown business improvement area number 1 and allocation of 2026 business improvement area number 1 revenues. Councilmember Clark, do you have an announcement to make?
Yes, I am recusing myself from participating in any discussion or determination about the downtown business improvement area number 1 due to the proximity of my personal residence to the improvement area.
Thank you. Councilmember Hicks, do you have an announcement to make?
Yes, I'm also recusing myself from participating in any discussion or determination about the downtown business improvement area number 1 because my personal residence is close to the improvement area.
Great, thank you. All right. Economic Vitality Manager Amanda Rotella and Community Development Director Christian Murdoch will present the item. If you'd like to speak on this item in person, please submit a blue speaker card to the city clerk now.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Tonight we're holding the second public hearing for the annual renewal process for the downtown business improvement area number 1. The first meeting on September 23rd, 2025 was to review and preliminarily approve BIA number 1. As a reminder, BIA 1 includes all businesses along Castro Street and side streets, and the BIA assessments are used for specific programming and services and promotion to support downtown businesses. In the annual report prepared by the Downtown Business Association, the 2026 projected revenues for BIA1 are approximately $38,700. There are 2 recommendations for City Council consideration. First, adopt a resolution confirming the annual report and levying an annual assessment in BIA1 for calendar year 2026. And second, to authorize the city manager or designee to allocate the 2026 revenues from Business Improvement Area number 1 to the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce to fund a disbursement agreement with the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce to accomplish the purposes of the area. That concludes staff's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member of the council have any questions? Councilmember McAllister.
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple of questions on council questions, and I'd just like to follow up on clarity on them. Well, the question is, what do we do with the funds? And one of my questions was concerning could the funds be used for the downtown parking garage electronic signage, because that's a very important part of the downtown, and you say that's covered under the Parking Management Operation Assessment District. Who runs that assessment district?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Christian Murdoch, Community Development Director. The city operates that district.
And whose district is, what department is that under?
So responsibilities cut across 2 primary departments, community development from the administrative side and public works department for operational and maintenance related issues.
And how is this district, does it collect fees?
It does. It operates on an assessment basis for businesses located, or properties rather, located within the district boundaries.
And how much do they collect each year, and what are their fees?
Yeah, it's approximately $156,000 a year.
Much better than our business district, doesn't it? Okay, so that being said, and then it says, okay, I'm concerned that this parking signage, which is I think a very important part of keeping people coming to Mountain View to find parking, and if they don't find it, they keep moving along. Why is that some of these funds can't be used for this specific purpose? Because when I asked about this, it says this is going to be repaired or replaced as part of the implementation of the 2021 downtown parking strategy. We're almost in 26. Why is this taking so long to get resolved? Because it's very important. It's a vital part of vitality of downtown, of people finding parking and go. So what's taking so long?
I think a number of competing priorities for the staff assigned to implement these is probably the simple version of that. What I can say is that we've engaged a parking management expert who we are working through the implementation actions identified in the downtown parking strategy, and we are prioritizing those. Among the prioritized work items include wayfinding signage, and so I would anticipate in the course of that work, what we ultimately bring to council in terms of a recommendation would reflect current best practice in terms of parking supply, signage, wayfinding, and the like. It hasn't been, certainly my recommendation internally to staff to simply redo the existing signage we have without knowing what the state of the art is and what would best serve our community and our visitors.
Could any of the funds from the Parking Management Operation Assessment District be used for this?
Most likely, yes, in terms of upkeep and operation of the facilities, yes.
Okay. And then my next follow-up question is, we collect funds for the business district. Why is it that we do not charge a fee for this service?
I think your question relates to the administrative fee that the city might opt to charge or
Yes.
recover. I can't speak to why this district wasn't formed with that sort of administrative fee structure in place. What I can say is at this point in time, all these years later in 2025, the amount of money that's collected already is insufficient for the intended primary purpose. And so all we would be doing by collecting an administrative fee is reducing that collection further potentially. And so rather than investigate how to do that, I think we're looking at new funding structures that potentially could include a realistic administrative assessment fee.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Does any other member of the council have any questions? All right, not seeing any, we'll open up public comment. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on this item? I am not seeing any speakers in person or virtually, so I'll bring the item back for council questions and deliberation. Please note that a motion to approve the recommendation should also include reading the title of the resolution attached to the report. Vice Mayor Ramos has made the motion, and it's been seconded by Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. Do I just read the resolution? All right. I move the staff's recommendation to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View approving the annual report of the Downtown Mountain View Business Improvement Area Number 1 and declaring its intention to levy assessments for 2026 to be read in title only, further reading waived, and to set a public hearing date of October 28, 2025.
All right, let's vote. All right, and that passes unanimously with those present. So we'll invite Councilmember Clark and Hicks to return to chambers, and we'll move to item 6.2, our Downtown Business Improvement Area Number 2, an allocation of 2026 Business Improvement Area Number 2 revenues. We'll wait till they return. All right, and we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council returning to Chambers Council. Tonight, we are holding the second public hearing in the annual renewal process for Downtown Improvement Area Number 2. The first meeting on September 23rd, 2025 was to review and preliminarily approve BIA Number 1. BIA Number 1 includes businesses in the 100, 200, and 300 blocks of Castro Street, and the assessments are used for programming, services, and promotion to support downtown businesses. In the annual report provided by the Downtown Business Association, the 2026 projected revenues for BIA Number 2 are approximately $12,000. And tonight there are two recommendations for City Council consideration. First, to adopt a resolution confirming the annual report and levying an annual assessment in BIA Number 2 for calendar year 2026. And second, to authorize the city manager or designee to allocate the 2026 revenues from Business Improvement Area Number 2 to the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce to fund a disbursement agreement with the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce to accomplish the purposes of the area. That includes staff's comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does any member of the council have any questions? All right, I am not seeing any, so we'll open up public comment. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on this item? I don't see any speakers, so I'll bring the item back for council questions and deliberation. Please note that a motion to approve the recommendation should also include reading the title of the resolution attached to the report. Would anyone like to make a motion? All right. It looks like we have our duo again, Vice Mayor Ramos and Councilmember Ramirez. So we'll turn it over to you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move staff's recommendation, and it is, here we go, to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View confirming the annual report of the Downtown Mountain View Business Improvement Area Number 2 and levying an annual benefit assessments for calendar year 2026 to be read in title only, further reading waive.
All right, let's vote.
Mayor, if I may, there's a second part to the recommendation as well that was not included in the motion.
All right, let me pull up the staff report.
It doesn't need to be read. You just need to move the entire recommendation.
Oh, I'll move the entire recommendation, staff's recommendation, along with what I just read.
Is that
okay?
Is that okay for the
Yes,
clean
that's
record?
fine.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's vote. All right, and that passes unanimously. Thank you to our staff. We'll move on to item 6.3, our code amendment to Chapter 36 zoning, tenant relocation assistance ordinance, first reading. Spanish translation services are available for this item. We will now hear from our interpreter.
Muy buenas noches. Para las personas que necesitan interpretación en persona, tenemos auriculares disponibles. Hoy ofreceremos interpretación en persona y de manera virtual. Para aquellos que necesitan interpretación mediante Zoom, favor de hacer clic en el botón de interpretación y después elija el idioma de su preferencia. También estaremos ofreciendo interpretación durante los comentarios públicos en persona y virtuales. Las personas que necesitan interpretación consecutiva, por favor, hablen en bloques de 3 oraciones, luego tomen una pausa para nosotros interpretar y así consecutivamente poder interpretar todas sus ideas. Muchas gracias.
Great, thank you. Rent Stabilization Manager Anki Van Dersen and Housing Director Wayne Chen will present the item. If you'd like to speak on this item in person, please submit a blue speaker card to the City Clerk now.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. I'm Anki Van Dersen, Rent Stabilization Manager from the Housing Department. Tonight, we are presenting the Tenant Relocation Assistance Ordinance Amendments, or TREO amendments, for the first reading. And these amendments are part of the Housing Element Program 3.2, which directs the city to review the efficacy of the TREO. Staff recommends introducing an ordinance to repeal the existing trail in Chapter 36, Article 13, add a new tenant relocation assistance article to Chapter 46, and find the amendments exempt from the CEQA. And if introduced tonight, the second reading will be scheduled for December the 9th of this year. The 2023-31 housing element includes Program 3.2, which calls for reviewing the efficacy of the TREO by the end of 2024. Here's a quick overview of the process to date. In July 24, we had stakeholder outreach to landlords, tenants, and developers. In November 14 of last year, we had a rental housing committee study session. On December 17th of 24, we had the first city council study session. We then had a September 17, 25 EPC meeting. APC reviews Chapter 36 amendments, and then on October 28 tonight, it's this public hearing for City Council. The EPC unanimously supported the amendments and added 3 additional considerations, which I'll touch on later. The TREO amendments align with several key state laws. Senate Bill 330, or the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, which governs tenant relocation benefits and noticing requirements. The Alice Act, which regulates withdrawal of rental units from the market, and relevant sections of the Health and Safety Code for tenant notices and habitability standards. During the December 23 study session, staff identified 6 main considerations in the current TREO, along with recommendations. Summarized here. The first one is no specific move-out date is mentioned for redevelopment projects. The second one is a notice of intent is issued too early. The third one is temporary and permanent displacements were treated the same. The fourth point is city enforced displacements were exempt from benefits. The fifth item is that there is no right of first refusal for tenants in redeveloped units. And the sixth item is increasing the efficacy of the TREO by increasing the relocation benefits. Each issue has a corresponding amendment that I'll go through now. Here's an illustrative example comparing the current TREO in the second column with the recommended amendments in the third column. And the dates of a typical development process are mentioned in the first column. Under SB 330, tenants can remain in their homes until 6 months before construction begins. Adding this timeline in the TREO prevents tenants from being asked to leave earlier than necessary and creates consistency with state requirements. The date of demolition permit issuance will serve as an objective standard for when construction starts. As you can see on the green arrow, the timing goes from June in 27 to May in 28, from 4A to 4B. Amendment 2 has a later notice of intent. This chart shows the shift of notice of intent. Currently, the landlords are required to issue a notice of intent within 30 days of filing an application. This may prompt tenants to move prematurely, and the amendment shifts that notice to 1 year before the required vacate date, aligning with SB 330 and other cities' practices. To keep tenants informed earlier, the city, and not the landlord, will send an informational notice when a development application is filed, including instructions to sign up for project-specific email notifications. This chart shows the shift of the notice intent from within 30 days of filing an application to 1 year before the required vacate date. And it also shows the city informational notice be handed out at the time of the application submittal. The third amendment is to add the temporary displacement section. Tenants who are temporarily displaced under the current ordinance receive the same relocation benefits as tenants who are permanently displaced. However, these are different types of impact. The amendment adds a new section defining temporary displacement at 90 days or less, requiring landlords to provide one of three options as modeled on our 660 Mariposa project. The first option is a per diem payment, or a hotel or motel within 5 miles, or comparable housing in Mountain View. Tenants also receive moving or storage cost coverage and a right of return to the same unit at the same rent once work is complete. If the displacement exceeds 90 days due to unforeseen circumstances, income-eligible tenants may opt to remain in their temporary replacement location or move out permanently and forgo the right of return to the remodeled unit. And income-eligible tenants can then receive permanent relocation benefits under the TREO, in addition to the temporary benefits they have already received. Moving to Amendment 4, a city and enforcement not exempt. The current TREO exempts landlords from paying relocation benefits if tenants are displaced due to city enforcement, such as the red tagging of units, which could cause unintended consequences. The amendment removes that exemption, except when the damage or destruction is not caused or contributed to by the landlord. The fifth proposed amendment is the SB 330 right of first refusal. SB 330 gives lower income tenants the right of first refusal to return to new units built after the redevelopment. The amendments add this right for displaced household up to 80% of the area median income. Landlords must provide unit inventories, tenant data, and evidence that the vacancies occurred lawfully. And landlords includes third-party agencies working for the landlords, developers, etc. Failure to comply could result in denial of building permits or project entitlements. The final amendment increases benefits to increase the efficacy of the TREO per council's request to evaluate the following options: low-income households up to 80% AMI, to be added as special circumstance group, qualifying for enhanced benefits similar to the amounts and our methodology used in comparable cities. And staff recommends moving costs capped at 50 miles for all tenants, regardless of income, either through reimbursements of actual reasonable costs or by landlords providing the professional moving services. The EPC also discussed a bonus for tenants who relocate within Mountain View. However, there are administrative and potential legal constraints to implement this data. Staff also recommends, as earlier mentioned, to relocate the TREO from Chapter 36 to Chapter 46, which is envisioned to consolidate housing-related ordinances. And the EPC proposed to add in the alternate mitigation sections that benefits must be of equivalent value to the TREO benefits, which staff incorporated. And after the EPC meeting, staff identified additional amendments to clarify the intent, which are non-substantive edits. One is that the consumer price index is referred to in the definition section. It was clarified that all displaced tenants receive moving assistance regardless of income, as already discussed, and it specified that the right of first refusal applies to both residential and non-residential projects that demolish protected units, which would align with SB 330 requirements. The second reading of this ordinance would be scheduled for December the 9th, and if approved, the amendments would take effect on January 8th on 2026. And that concludes staff presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Does any member of the council have any questions? Councilmember McAllister.
Thank you. So I was reading this and I saw that you went to a bunch of advisory committees to make amendments and changes. What kind of outreach did you do to the landlords associations to keep them update and get their input into these changes that have been recently done?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Wayne Chen, Housing Director. So as Ms. Van Dersen provided in the presentation, at the beginning of the process, there was outreach conducted prior to the study sessions that were undertaken last year. After we got direction from council to move forward with the recommended changes, then the ensuing time after December was really working on the draft amendments, looking at comparable jurisdictions and providing a basis for the enhanced benefits. And what we've done is to notify the folks who have registered for the displacement response strategy and those who have registered for the rental housing committee distribution list information, providing this information through that process. We didn't have additional stakeholder meetings afterwards because we felt we had clear direction from council to implement the changes and study the parameters. And so we had been working on evaluating comparable jurisdictions and working on the ordinance amendments after the December study session.
So since I wasn't here during the last part, but it sounds like from July of 24 till where we are now, you got initial input from the landlords departments. And so how do we, that there wasn't really any outreach because there was some changes, how do we present a balanced ordinance if we're not hearing from both sides of this particular ordinance? I'm still hearing that there was no direct outreach. You had emails going to other people. Was there direct outreach to associations or any of those types to say, we've done this, what do you think of this dollar amounts, et cetera, et cetera?
Primarily, we evaluated comparable jurisdictions. The moving cost piece was implementing the council direction to provide a moving cost benefit to all residents regardless of income. And so what we had done with that was just try to gather some data about how to implement that. And then again, for the comparable jurisdictions with regards to enhanced benefits for just the low income category, that is, the enhanced benefits are not for all tenants, it's just for the low income category. We were just implementing and evaluating council's direction by looking at the comparable jurisdictions. So you're correct, we didn't further meet with stakeholder meetings, but we're publicizing the meetings that we undertook with EPC and tonight's city council meeting.
So was there any financial check to fair, or an analysis to say, when we say all incomes, that the cost was going to be this much? Was it something that that TARO is supposed to be neutral, supposedly balanced for fairness all on both sides, that going out and say for all incomes so we could have a $200,000, $300,000 person saying you're getting money, was that any analysis to it, or was that more of a feel-good type of motion?
Yes, we provided comprehensive information during the study sessions last year, where we identified in the staff reports, there's really kind of three groups to think about who could council direct us to study additional benefits for. The first group was for folks who were up to the 80% AMI low income group. The second group was really the moderate income group, up to 120% plus a 5,000 bonus, because that's what's in our trail right now. And then the third group was anyone above that, essentially above moderate income earners. The question was posed to council and to the Rental Housing Committee last year: is there interest in evaluating additional benefits for one or any of the groups? And the direction that we received was enhanced benefits for group one, the low income households, and moving costs for all of the groups. And so those were questions that were discussed last year in a good amount of detail, and the direction that was provided was moving costs for everyone, enhanced benefits for just the low-income group.
Okay, since I was not here last year, I did not participate in that. So I saw a figure of $21,000. Does that ring a bell in your?
Yes. So right now, the Treo benefits is 3 months of comparable rent. So if we were to take the recent data, let's say that's about $4,000 of a comparable rent times 3, that's $12,000. And then there's a special circumstances category. Currently, it's for households with a senior or with children up to a certain age. The recommendation is to add the low-income household group as a third category under the special circumstances group. That's about an $8,000 enhanced benefit. And so that's where we get to about the $20,000 or $21,000 amount, which is in the range of what other cities do for low-income households.
So if somebody moved from Mountain View a mile away, they're getting a fixed cost, or did I read something about the actual cost for the landlord? So is it a fixed amount or is it an actual cost to move?
We were talking about the moving costs specifically, right? So the landlord can either provide the service and just cover it, or have the tenant conduct the move, furnish the receipts for the actual cost, and then have it reimbursed.
So, okay. As the cost, I mean, are non-rental units included in this for relocation?
Certainly the CSFR...
I mean, when I say non-rental, I mean CCF, yeah.
The Treo is CSFR units, and then if you can clarify, you were about to provide some comments.
It's not limited to the CSFRA. The Treo existed before the CSFRA even came into effect. So it is for all redevelopments that demolish 3 or more units in a rental property.
So that was an existing Mountain View code? Okay, and was there a dollar amount on that?
The 3 months comparable rent has been in place for, I think, since 2014.
Was there any financial analysis to say that this could be quite a burden for a landlord?
Yes. So in the December study session last year, we provided a framework for considering feasibility as well, development feasibility. In the December staff report, we noted that there's actually SB 330 relocation benefits that also need to be evaluated on, for example, a redevelopment project. So a redevelopment project will come through and take a look at what the Treo redevelopment or relocation benefits would be, and also conduct an analysis under the SB 330 requirements. In many cases, if not most cases, the SB 330 requirements would be greater and potentially far greater than the Treo amount. What we discussed last year in December was that SB 330 was likely the upper limit of what it could be, and we really needed to be looking at something below that limit. And adding low-income households as a special circumstance category is below that limit, and also in line with other cities that provide enhanced benefits for low-income households. And so because we do have consideration for being below the SB 330 limit, we believe, and then looking at where comparable jurisdictions are landing for the amounts, we believe that it's addressing the feasibility question as well. There is the attachment 3 that provides what other cities are providing as well. And
may I add something? When we were comparing other cities, no other city is limiting the income eligibility for Treo payments. So all other cities that we reviewed have no limitations on the income of any tenant, and they provide these relocation benefits to all the tenants that are being displaced. So we wanted to keep in trace with the Treo and with the previous wishes of the City Council to keep that in place.
Okay, you brought up a question. So when you compared that all cities have no income limit, how about all the other fees? Are we higher, lower, in middle, in between for displacement?
Could you specify which fees you mean?
Well, okay, you said for the relocation fees, there was no income level that says you're not entitled to it. When you compared other fees, because you said multiple times that we compared to other cities, when you said you compared to other cities, was that just on relocation or on all the other fees that people potentially are entitled to on displacement?
We only looked at the comparable jurisdictions related to relocation benefits, not, I think what you're suggesting is total development cost.
Was there any consideration that the fees could be a detriment to remodeling for people to, because we have a lot of older units in the city that need some drastic repair. So was there any input or look at or talk to that if I have to do some updating, it's going to cost us so much, so there's no incentive for me to do it because this is going to cost me a bunch of money. So
that was actually one of the primary reasons why staff recommended evaluating temporary displacement as a new section rather than having tenants who might need to move out because the landlord wants to do remodeling and having to pay permanent relocation costs under the current TREO. There wasn't a really easy way to do that. We did have the benefit of the 660 Mariposa project where the developer renovated a CSRA building and provided options for folks to move out for a short period of time and move back in. Those temporary costs would be lower than the costs that are currently in TREO. So we think that the recommended amendments are trying to address the question that you're posing, which would hopefully allow landlords to undertake more renovations than they are currently under the TREO.
Is it possible that somebody could be entitled to temporary displacement and permanent displacements, depending on how they looked at things?
In the scenario that we are thinking of, if there is an unforeseen circumstance where the landlord is initially thinking that the scope of work would be 90 days or less, and there are circumstances that result in a longer period of time, then the options that Ms. Van Dersen was presenting, that they could opt to stay in their temporary situation, that's one option. The other option is a tenant can say, well, I would rather conclude my temporary situation. I would like to move out permanently. I won't have a right to come back to the unit. They would be then eligible for also the permanent relocation benefits if they're income eligible. Those are really the two situations. Now, there is still the alternative means of compliance section here. So potentially what a landlord can do is to say, well, we think we might be a little bit longer than 90 days. So we might come in under the alternative means of compliance section. The reason why we thought of a 90-day period of time was to prevent a situation where a landlord might intend to have rehab done, and then it just kind of drags on for a while, and it becomes a year or 18 months or whatnot. So we wanted to have a window of time. But there's the alternative means of compliance, the new temporary displacement section, along with a modified permanent relocation section.
When does the 90-day start? When you say notice of intent, does that mean that the landlord, if he's required to have a permit, does it start from the day he gets the permit? Because we know getting permitting and so forth can take a little bit of time. So when does that 90-day start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to look to Anki real quick too. Yeah.
From the date that the developer says that the tenants have to move.
So is that realistic, though?
I think so. Like, so
well,
the developer gets the remodeling permit. He is planning his remodel.
So he's okay. So he's got his permit in hand.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was. Okay.
And then, but then the 90 days don't start yet. The 90 days start from when he gives the notice to the tenants that they have to temporarily.
Okay. So it's not okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Showalter.
Well, Councilmember McAllister asked a couple of the questions I was going to ask, so, but I'm a little confused about the money. All right, so we've been hearing the magic number is $21,000, the maximum. How do you get that? So 3 months times 4,000 plus, or 3 months times 4,000 plus 8,000 for special circumstances plus 1,000 to move? Is that it?
So the amount varies by person because the 3-month comparable rent depends on what the renter is displaced from. Say if it's a 3-bedroom unit, we're looking at the data, current data, what does the 3-bedroom unit go for in the market today? Those are the 3 months rent that they're getting. Plus for the tenants 80% AMI or lower, they get an additional special circumstances, which is around $8,000, and that goes up each year with the CPI.
Okay. All right. So
if a 3-bedroom apartment currently goes for $3,500, they get 3 times $3,500 plus the extra $8,000.
Okay. All right. So that's not quite 20, and plus moving expenses. Okay. All right, thank you. So then we get to moving expenses. I can imagine how that varies quite a bit. I know over the course of my life, there was a time when I, would have just put a few things in a suitcase and a couple of boxes and stuck it all in my car and maybe a friend's car, and we would have been done. And then as time goes on and you get furniture and, household stuff, it gets to be much more extensive. So, so it seems like leaving this kind of open-ended is, it could be very open-ended. What if people have a grand piano? That could cost a lot to move. So, how are we going to work this so that it's not so that it's not too open-ended?
The thought is that the 50-mile cap is one way to keep it from being open-ended. The thought is that if a tenant needs to move, they would have all their belongings that would need to go with them. So if they had a piano, then they should be able to bring the piano with them. If there are any other specific parameters that council has in mind, we can certainly take it. But we have looked at other cities, and it is really kind of based on the ability to either have the landlord pay it or to furnish the actual costs of the move through receipts or invoices. And there is going to be a range. If folks are moving a little bit farther, if folks have more things, then it will vary.
Okay. And then the temporary removal. Why was 90 days chosen? What kind of upgrades are you expecting a landlord to make in 90 days? And what couldn't be made in 90 days? Can you tell me? Because I know when I've done remodeling, it's, you get an estimate from your contractor, and for most people, that estimate is very rubbery. And it goes a lot longer. You should break out the champagne if you get it done on time. It's really not standard. So, I'm interested in what are the kinds of things that you think would be done?
Thank you for the question. One of the starting points that we had was taking a look at the 660 Mariposa project, which had a pretty comprehensive scope of work. And I believe the time frame for completing the work, moving folks out, completing the work, and moving folks in was around 45 days or so. Now they might have more experience and was able to implement all the changes by then. It was pretty comprehensive. It was floors and cabinetry and appliances and fixtures and things like that. So that was pretty comprehensive. And then there was also work done in the hallways and the common areas as well. Those would be the types of things that we would envision. Maybe it's not all of them. Maybe it's just a subset of of features. And then there could be other ways too of helping folks stay in the building. So for example, in the 660 Mariposa example, the work was done in phases, and so not everyone had to move at the same time, but there was also the ability to move folks from a unit that they're in to another unit on site as a way to keep folks in there. But I think that's where the alternate means of compliance can come in. If folks feel like they envision a scope of work that might need more than 90 days, they can come in under that pathway. We're also looking at how other cities handle temporary displacement situations, and it ranged from 45 days to 60 days and whatnot. And to your point, it seemed like it would be reasonable to have a little bit more time than some of our comparable jurisdictions in order to have the landlords be able to get the contractors and maybe factor in a little bit of additional time to be able to implement the work. So taking a look at the comparable jurisdictions, looking at the time frame that the 660 Mariposa was completed, and having some flexibility without a situation where it dragged on too long was where we landed on the 90 days.
Okay, the other thing I was thinking of is that, a lot of improvements are done when an apartment turns over. And then the landlord doesn't have these restrictions. But if they want to do kind of some structural work, say, to the whole apartment building, I can imagine there might be, there might be some jobs that needed to be done, termite damage or electrification issues or things like that that would really take in the whole, the whole building. So, it would be different. Are there ways for us to make this a little more flexible? Have you thought of how you might make this flexible? For instance, if a job isn't done because there's something happens that's outside of the control of the landlord or the contractor, that jump up to, the complete TREO, that's a big jump. Do we want to, how would you implement that?
We're just brainstorming here a little bit. Perhaps there could be a provision that allows documentation of an unforeseen circumstance that, because it was beyond the control of the landlord and they've done their best to try to keep it within the 90 days, that there can be some flexibility incorporated into that, because it was not the intention to go longer than is needed, but things have happened, and we know that with supply chain and whatnot, things can happen. So there could be some flexibility potentially introduced in that manner.
I think that would be great. Okay, thank you. And then another question I have is we haven't talked much here about red tagging houses. It's a very scary subject. If you're, having worked in flood control, the worst thing that can happen if you're in a flood is that your house gets red tagged and you can't live in it. So it's a very, very serious situation when your house gets red tagged. And so I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about what would cause an apartment to get red tagged, and what's our experience in Mountain View with this kind of thing?
Thanks for the question. We've had, I think, 2 or 3 projects over the last year and a half or two where the city has had to take this type of enforcement action to red tag. In one of the projects, the units were just not habitable, or they might have been unpermitted, I believe, and the situation resulted where the city action then resulted in tenants having to leave right away, but there wasn't a way to provide the TREO benefits to those tenants. Perhaps Ms. Van Dersen has some additional details about the characteristics or the situations of a couple of those projects.
These were definitely unpermitted, simple structures, mostly found in the back of the yard, looking more like sheds than housing or ADUs, lacking basic water, bathrooms, kitchens, you name it.
So if we were, and I did ask this question, if something was red tagged because of a natural disaster, you answered it in the, questions, then, like an earthquake or a flood, then that wouldn't necessarily trigger the TREO, right? I mean, so share that with the public.
That's correct. The recommendation is to maintain an exemption when there is, say, a fire or natural disaster and the situation was not caused or contributed to by the landlord.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for answering all those questions.
Councilmember Hicks.
So my question was mostly asked by Councilmember Showalter. There's maybe, I'm trying to think whether to still ask, there may be a little remaining piece of it. So the temporary displacement, my question is on the temporary displacement. I actually asked this in council questions, but there's just a little bit that I think is left. I guess most of this you've answered, but I'm wondering if my experience with renovations is that you get all the contractors, subcontractors in, and one step of it goes wrong. And it may be because I'm not as professional as the people. I don't work with the regular contractors all the time. But that may be the case for like a mom and pop rental owner. So what happens if, I think in the staff report you said that if the landlord foresees that it's going to go over 90 days, the renovation, that they have to give the tenant 1 month notice that they're going to go over. But my experience is sometimes you don't know until the last minute. So I'm wondering, this is in the category that Councilmember Showalter asked about flexibility. Like, how could we handle that if it's more of an unexpected thing?
My suggestion would be to have these be administrative details and procedures that with your feedback, we can develop the procedural elements that can provide the flexibility and incorporate the ability to take a look at information that can be provided by the landlord about unforeseen or unexpected situations, and then essentially promulgate those through administrative guidelines and procedures. So I think you've already identified at least a couple here for us to take back and provide flexibility that way.
That sounds good to me. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions. First, it might be helpful for staff to spell out when TREO applies and when the relocation assistance under SB 330 applies. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but historically, thinking about the types of displacement that we've seen in Mountain View, most of those would have required SB 330 relocation benefits. So when would TREO be required, and when would SB 330 be required?
Yeah, so the TREO states that if 3 or more units are being demolished and tenants are being displaced, then the TREO will be applicable. Then SB 330 came along, and under there, protected units is a definition under SB 330, which comprises CSFRA units, rent-controlled units, and any units with low-income tenants. So it's not one or the other. We have some guidelines where we compare the TREO benefits with the SB 330 benefits, and the stringenter one of the two applies for each situation. So most of the times, the tenant relocation benefits are greater under SB 330, so then that will apply. But then the TREO also requires a relocation agent to be used to help the tenants find placement units. So then that application from the TREO applies as well at the same time.
Okay, and my apologies for walking through this very pedantically, but for I think the most important income bracket we're considering is 80% and below, because that's where we are for the first time going to consider the special circumstance benefit addition, right? In many cases, though, for that income bracket, if households 80% AMI and below are displaced, they're more often than not going to benefit from SB 330 relocation assistance and not TREO. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, in many, if not most cases.
So then what are examples of displacement, and you could draw from examples we've seen in Mountain View, where TREO for the 80% AMI and below households would apply?
So first off, the TREO itself doesn't have the 80% AMI income group defined. Any eligible household under 120% AMI plus $5,000 get TREO benefits. So for the time being that SB 330 is also in place, only the households between 80 and 120% AMI will get the TREO benefits, whereas most likely the households under 80% will benefit more from the SB 330 payouts.
I think we're talking past each other just a little bit. So for households 80% AMI or above 88% AMI, there is no additional special circumstance benefit, right? That's only for 80% and below. But when would that actually be provided, since most of these households would benefit from SB 330 state-mandated?
That's correct. Yeah, both as CSFRA units and just in general rental households under 80% AMI will be covered under the SB 330. So it would be a rare instance where households would not get benefits under SB 330 but then fall under the TREO. But we wanted to increase the efficacy of the TREO and add SB 330 elements in there as far as they are reasonable, in case the SB 330 at the time would not be a permanent one, because for the longest time it had a sunset date.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. And just to, I think, maybe make it crystal clear for me, can you think of an example, and perhaps using displacement that has come before the council in the past, 10 years or so, where we would use the TREO, special circumstance additional benefit, the relocation benefit, instead of the SB 330 state-mandated relocation assistance? So staff says it's rare. When might we see that actually paid out?
Yeah, it's a somewhat complicated Venn diagram. I'm going to read a couple more categories under the definition of protected unit under SB 330, which expands the situation. And then I'm going to ask if Karen Tiedemann, legal counsel to the Rental Housing Committee, could provide some additional information to your question. So a protected unit.
Sorry, before you go further, let's just try to, if staff can promote Karen while, perfect, okay, great.
Thank you. So a protected unit under SB 330 is a unit covered by local rent stabilization provisions. Number two, subject to affordable housing covenants like a 100% affordable project. A unit that is just simply occupied by very low and low-income households, or four units subject to what is called an Ellis Act eviction, where a landlord can just remove the units from the rental market. And something like that has occurred in the last 10 years. But if Karen is available, perhaps you can speak to Councilmember Ramirez's question about sort of the situations in which the TREO and the SB 330 overlap or don't overlap in terms of the coverage.
Yes, good evening. Karen Tiedemann with Goldfarb and Lippman, outside counsel for the city. So the situations where a 80% household would not be eligible for the 330 benefits would be a circumstance where the unit is covered by the CSFRA and there's an owner occupancy move-in, or there's an Ellis Act eviction. So any no-fault just cause eviction under the CSFRA or the MHRSO that isn't related to a development project would trigger those benefits.
Thank you. And can staff share statistically, how often has that occurred since the CSFRA became law?
Yeah, so SB 330 is only applicable when properties are being demolished. So whenever it's not being demolished, but for instance, there is an owner move-in, we've seen, I would say, about 20 cases of those
Since
in the
April
last,
2017?
I would say in the last 2-3 years. Yeah.
Okay, around 20 examples. And that's, so those aren't all households with lower than 80% AMI. That's just the total number. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. So I guess just to sum up this line of questioning, for the most part, these amendments simply codify SB 330. We're not changing too much beyond that.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. One last question, and maybe for the city attorney. Staff has brought up administrative guidelines and procedures. I didn't comb through the Muni Code amendments that carefully. Is that some additional direction that the council would have to provide to give staff the flexibility to address the temporary displacement issues that council members McAllister, Hicks, and Showalter talked about?
So are you seeking to have those included in the ordinance or just included in the administrative guidelines that would be drafted by staff?
Do the amendments to the Muni Code that have been prepared for council review already reference administrative guidelines and procedures? Right. So we don't need to take any additional action?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are people still in the queue, or are they wanting a second bite? Councilmember Callister, Councilmember Hicks, are you? Yeah, I would. Thank you. Okay. Well, I think if it's a direct comment to what Councilmember Ramirez just said, then, or is it just, yeah, I think that's fine, and then we'll then we can go for those who haven't spoken, and then we can do second round if folks want.
So bringing up SB 330, so my understanding is, I feel like I should know the answer to this, but my understanding is that it expires it does not expire ever?
It's now been made permanent.
Okay, that's the answer to my question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so for colleagues, if you have any additional questions, we'll just continue on with questions before we open public comment. I had a procedural kind of question. So when this came to council last December, when looking at table 1, item number 6, and it said evaluate options to increase benefits, are all the amendments proposed like starting on page 9 when it says amendment 6, and then everything after that, additional amendments. And so from page 9 to page 12, are those considered the quote unquote options that you're bringing back to council? Because everything says amendment. And so, not to necessarily make a question comment, but I thought we were going to get, kind of option 1, option 2, option 3. I think the tables are descriptive in terms of the attachments, but I thought we were going to get kind of options of a suite of options which we could choose from. But are you saying that all the amendments listed from page 9 to 12 are options recommended by staff for adoption?
Yes, our understanding from last December study session was to bring back ordinance amendments for considerations, and typically when we do that, we would provide the recommended amendment as opposed to provide options for discussion. So that was the approach that we took. And then I think you're referring to page 9 of tonight's staff report. Yeah, we were really going, we're really looking to be responsive to the section where council support evaluating enhanced benefits for group 1 only and moving costs for all three groups. And based on that direction, the ensuing narrative was to provide the recommended amendment for council consideration.
How many amendments are there? Because I think there's the amendment, so because there's also additional considerations, additional amendments. So can staff just tell us like which, I think it's just important to clarify.
Yes, so the amendment for this 6th item, evaluating or looking at increased benefits, is number 1, to add the low income household category up to 80% AMI. That group would be added as a new group under special circumstances. So that's the part A of Amendment 6. And then the second
Part A of Amendment 6. So which, are we looking at the table or the staff report? Just the way, and apologies, the way it's written and the way I'm just trying to align, particularly for the public. So I think the chart, the chart on table 3 is quite illustrative in terms of 1 through 5. Okay, these are the challenges, considerations, these are recommendations. But when we get into item 6 and it says evaluate options, there's kind of multiple amendments that fall under that bucket. And so I just want to clarify all of the additional amendments that we are discussing and reviewing tonight as a council.
I would draw your attention to page 10. Under in the first full paragraph, in the bold, it says staff recommends using this methodology and amending the TREO to include group 1 as part of the definition of special circumstance. So that's one aspect. And then in the next section under moving costs, in the bold, where it says staff recommends allowing the landlord to elect either of the following forms of moving assistance in the 2 bullet points, that's the second part of the benefits for moving costs for everyone. So the first full paragraph on page 10, and then the middle bolded section for moving costs.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's 2 amendments, two additional options, 2 additional amendments to what we had discussed in December.
These are 2 subcomponents to.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I know. I'm just trying to.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so subcomponents. All right, and then when we're getting into the additional considerations, so we're talking about adding group 1 as part of the special circumstances, and then the second amendment on the moving costs. And then when we get down into, because then you get into EPC additional consideration 2, and then we get into even more additional amendments. So is that something that we're discussing tonight? Is that incorporated into the final motion? I just need clarity.
Yes, so the EPC additional consideration was to actually add an even higher amount of moving costs. And what we've noted here is there may be some challenges. So to be very clear, staff is recommending to not do that.
Okay, thank you.
The additional amendments have been incorporated into attachment 1 as amendments already. So during the EPC meeting, so on page 11 where it says EPC additional consideration 3,
yes,
that has been incorporated into attachment 1. And then the clarifications were items that staff had identified that would benefit from additional clarity but doesn't change the intent of it. Those have already been incorporated into attachment 1 as well. Yes.
Okay. So, all right. And hopefully that clarifies everything for colleagues too. I just wanted to make sure that we're all understanding all of the different amendments that we're talking about tonight and what's actually incorporated into what we're being asked to adopt. So, and then just another question. So there was a question brought up by a colleague about kind of additional community outreach that could be done. So should council adopt the TREO tonight, is there an opportunity to have further discussions and outreach? I think one, I think education is going to be a huge component, but is there also an opportunity for communications on these two amendments, or moving costs and adding these folks to group one, or has the ship sailed, and if council adopts both of those amendments tonight, then there would be no further conversations with and outreach with those different entities that we may have not heard from yet?
There would be, for example, for this meeting, information provided about the agenda packet to all the folks who've signed up for receiving this information. That would go out again for the consent item, but there wouldn't really be a process to provide feedback to modify anything from tonight. This would go to the second reading as a consent item.
So if council was interested in opportunities for that dialogue to happen, how would we be able to do that? We would.
Yeah, I think we would have a modified schedule to the extent that there may be some modifications that come out of that. We may, I would just confirm with the city attorney that we may have to come back for a new first reading.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to clarify. Would we need to continue that item and hear it again to get that input, or could we adopt tonight with, I don't know, with that up? Yeah. City Attorney Logue.
Okay. So you could make amendments tonight and introduce it with amendments, and then it would come back for a second reading for adoption. So you wouldn't have to reintroduce it. I mean, you're here tonight and it's noticed for you to discuss everything. So you could make amendments tonight. It's just that if it comes back again on the second reading, then you are done at that point. So there would be no more amendments. But you could make amendments tonight that we could incorporate before second reading.
Well, I think that's just how do we move this forward if those feel that they haven't had an opportunity to engage and provide
input.
Correct.
If you want to allow for more input from the community, I would continue the item and just bring it back for another first reading.
Okay, thank you. I just was curious about that, just because that was a question that came up. All right, back to Councilmember McAllister.
Thank you, Mayor, for that last clarification. That was one of my questions. So I just needed a little more clarification on a couple. So the 21,000, did I hear you say that was based on a 3-bedroom unit?
I was just given an example that the 21,000 is not a fixed number, how tenant benefits are being calculated. I'm just saying this is what the methodology is to calculate each household's TREO benefits if it comes to that. So if you're in a 2-bedroom apartment and the market rate for that, and I'm just hypothetically speaking, is $2,500 per month, then they get 3 months of the $2,500.
Okay. So these were exempt, because for some reason I saw the 21,000. I thought that was the given. What would happen in flexibility, and I thank you, Councilmember Showalter, for your thoughts on flexibility. And what if somebody, we have some landowners and landlords in Mountain View who have hundreds of units. What if they say, okay, we're going to do some work here and we're going to put you into another unit of our own? Do they get all these relocation costs?
That's an option for them to do to help move folks into vacant units that could accommodate folks for a period of time, and then that could be it. There wouldn't have to be like a payment to a hotel or something. Though I think the only thing that then, or the primary thing that would remain would just any costs associated with moving folks to a different unit.
So there's no I wouldn't say extra cost of displacement. You're just paying, you're going from here to here, the rent's going to be this. Okay, is that something that is in here to say that's an exemption?
That's one of the options in the amendments already.
Okay, and nope, those are my questions. Thank you. Very quick.
All right, I don't see any other council questions, so we'll open public comment. If any member of the public would like to provide public comment on this issue, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or submit a blue speaker card to the city clerk. We'll take in-person speakers first. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. We'll begin with Norman Lopatin, Anil Babar, Tessa McFarland, and then we'll go to virtual.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, staff. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight about this. I am a portfolio manager for a small investment group, local investment group, that we have a 40-unit apartment complex in Mountain View at the present time. And I would like to say that you need to think about all of this. This will dissuade developers from redeveloping properties in Mountain View. It's an added cost that is a below-the-line cost that doesn't add value to the development, doesn't add value to anything other than the bottom line that they have to spend. You're in the most expensive area in the world in terms of development costs. And by increasing that, you're not doing yourself any favor, and you do have. We're in an older stock building. And the 90-day, I'm not going to talk about the temporary because the temporary relocation is, I think, a very good thing, and it's not a problem. The 90 days is a problem. It's not realistic. It's not realistic at all because the majority are not cabinetry and refrigerators and whatever that you're doing in painting and recarpeting. It's infrastructure that is the problem in these older buildings. The electric, that have to all be upgraded, which might even require upgraded service being brought to the thing, which takes over 1.5 years with PG&E to get that. So to say that 90 days is enough isn't even close. But that's not what I'm here on. I'm here on the cost of moving them out. Okay, and I only have a couple questions on that. That did you consider? The majority of the people in our development are people that are on subsidized housing from county, state, and local and federal agencies that support it. The tenant itself doesn't even have the lease. The lease is held by the agency that is granting them getting the lease. So does that agency get relocation money? Because that obviously doesn't seem to make sense. And that is not the purpose of what this is for. And also, I mean, you want to encourage the redevelopment within your city. To encourage redevelopment, all I'm looking for is if you've held it for a long period of time, what you want to avoid is flippers. Okay, I'm sure everyone understands what that term means, a flipper. A flipper is someone who comes in, buys something, and next year sells it because they've increased the value by, they bought it cheap, and they turn around, get higher rents when they're allowed to move in, and then they flip it to someone else. They have no commitment to the community. You want to keep people who are local and who have commitments to this community. You're not serving yourself well by making this amendment and doing this where this relocation is that high. Also, again, as I said, if the person doesn't even own the lease, all right, and they've been there for less than a year.
Thank you. Sorry, that was your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have more to say, and you definitely need to come and talk to us. We were never asked. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Anil Babar with the California Apartment Association. I wanted to express my opposition to the proposed changes in the TREO. First, we're concerned, and as we pointed out in our letter and as you've heard on the dais today, about the lack of outreach to housing providers on this issue. Property owners were not given an opportunity to present or participate in shaping these ordinances. One meeting 1.5 years ago doesn't suffice as outreach. It is a check the box. We want to be able to be at the table and understand the issue better and could have avoided a lot of the questions that you were having today. Secondly, as we mentioned before in the letter, these proposed relocation payments are simply too high. You've heard from a previous property owner that the impacts that these high payments will have, it will make it unsustainable to support reinvestment in housing and could lead to deferred maintenance, deterioration of properties, and so forth. So we're asking simply to just continue this item
have our opportunity to present our input, ask the questions, understand the policy, and come to some mutual agreement before we move forward and adopt something that will have obviously some, I'm sure, a lot of unintended consequences. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Tessa?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Tessa McFarland. I'm Senior Vice President and General Counsel at Prometheus Real Estate Group. We've been a housing provider in Mountain View for many, many years. We, in fact, did the development at 660 Mariposa. Unfortunately, no one reached out to us about any of the provisions that are being kind of touted as a general justification for what you're doing. And I have to say, going to Councilmember McAllister's point, for that deal to work, we knew all of our development costs going in. So we were able to assess what we did there in connection with all of our development approvals. And so I don't think that that project, as great as it is a good general plan example. I'm here to ask you to please continue this matter. There has not been appropriate outreach. The 2 study sessions that were conducted were very general. This is the first time, a couple days ago on Friday, that this very detailed amendment was made available. And there aren't just 2 amendments. I mean, I want to be really clear on that. There are 8 pages of new language at pages 24 through 32, including for the new temporary relocation, new right of first refusal, new inventory requirements. There's at least 7 new substantive definitions that are being changed. As to the comp charts, I'm not sure how comparable they are. We have Oxnard, West Hollywood, and Santa Monica. And even if we look at the comp charts that were provided, for example, the limited data that's example, 3 jurisdictions, Alameda, Santa Monica, and San Francisco, do not include the 80% AMI households as special circumstances. So the data that is provided is limited, and in some cases it is against what is being touted by staff here. The resulting 21,000 potential of relocation assistance is damaging. It is a lot of money, especially when you cap that with unlimited moving expenses. As Councilwoman Showalter said, you know, a grand piano, a piece of art, you know, who knows, right? But there's absolutely no cap on any moving expenses, and a 50-mile radius is a very, very large radius. I've got a lot of other things to say. The right of first refusal language won't work. It's going to hold units off the market for over 90 days, which I don't think is what is intended here. The issue of landlords having to provide notice in 3 languages plus language that's requested by the tenant is untenable. And I've got a lot of other comments, but.
Thank you. Yes. All right, so that concludes public comment in person. So we'll move to virtual. Eileen Kim.
Thank you. My concern is that among the changes that the city staff are recommending to the ordinance is a significant increase in the relocation payments. The expanded relocation benefits would increase the financial burden on housing providers, and we're talking small mom and pop property owners. By doubling the benefits from about $12,000 to more than $21,000 per household, plus covering the moving costs for the tenant, regardless of the tenant's income. Let me repeat that. Regardless of the tenant's income. This could be an AI tech worker making $1 million a year, and the small mom and pop owner needs to reimburse them for their moving costs and relocation costs. I know people are frustrated with the lack of affordable housing in the Bay Area, but the issue truly at the core of this is the lack of housing. Let me repeat that. The lack of housing being built, period. Basic supply and demand. But to confuse the problem of a lack of affordable housing is related to and solved with increased rent control is a grave mistake. Let me talk about a study out of Stanford. Back in 2019, Stanford University's study found that rent control in San Francisco led to a 15% decrease in the supply of rental housing because landlords sold properties or converted them to owner-occupied units. This study, called The Effect of Rent Control Expansion on Tenants, Landlords, and Inequality, was conducted by Rebecca Diamond, Tim McQuaid, and Franklin Kwan. I urge the city councilor members to read this study. Time and time again, it's been proven with study after study, rent control and putting more and more fees on property owners does nothing to increase the affordable housing crisis. It in fact decreases the amount of affordable housing, as well it ghettoizes the stock of housing that's made available. So when we return back to this new ordinance, the city staff are recommending to have small mom and pop owner landlords shelling out $21,000 per household, plus the cost of moving costs to the tenant, regardless of the tenant's income, where there's no cap on the moving costs, is really an onerous burden. It's basically taking the problem of affordable housing, and instead of solving with building new housing as a city, the city staff is actually trying to offload the housing issues onto the backs of owners of small mom and pop property owners. They keep using the word developer. These are not developers. These property owners are people who have worked hard, scrimped and saved, gotten a mortgage, maybe bought a triplex, maybe a quadplex, and they've gotten a mortgage and they're renting it out, working every weekend, working every evening in the hopes that this rental income will be their retirement income. And this is what the city staff is offloading this cost onto. This is not a solution. I urge you to reassess your ordinances, increase more housing.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Reagan Avery.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Reagan Avery with ACO Management. Our company's been based in Mountain View since 1960. I've personally worked at the company for 34 years. And I must say, I've never seen the California Apartment Association as frustrated as they've been with this process, as was articulated by Neil, and not being really at the table as a stakeholder. And either staff felt that the housing industry was not a stakeholder here, which obviously isn't the case, because ultimately we're the ones deciding to move forward. And if redeveloping, providing more housing stock, which is very much needed, and also upgrading CSFRA stock, 100% of our housing, 3 large communities are under CSFRA. And if we redevelop, as you know, we're titled to maintain that same number under the CSFRA regulations. Units are 50, 60 years old, but adding to the costs of doing so without including the stakeholders can lead to unintended consequences working against those goals. And I appreciated many comments by the council tonight about very informed about how the idea of a predictable schedule on a remodel is pretty much unheard of. And the types of remodels we would be looking at here, as was communicated, as well as the idea of having no means testing. I guarantee you that the communities the staff looked at, the average income, even in B-level properties, is magnitudes higher in Mountain View than in those other communities. I guess my ultimate concern was why the housing industry and CAA weren't invited to the table. Either they weren't considered a key stakeholder, or someone didn't want to hear their input. But I very much encourage the continuation, because so much of the discussion tonight has been valuable. The questions from council members, much of this, as was articulated, could have been vetted out earlier, and there's still a lot that needs to be vetted out going forward. Thank you for your time and listening to my comments.
Great, thank you. Next is Edie Keating.
Hi, thank you. Hearing this tonight, I'm remembering the Rock Street redevelopments. And those were painful because tenants were losing their homes. And the Treo in those situations were helpful. It didn't answer all the questions, neither will these situations answer all questions or help everyone stay in Mountain View. Some of the things I'm hearing tonight that I would like to speak to are the idea that the older housing stock in Mountain View must be redeveloped. And I've seen, just visiting different apartment complexes, that in place improvements to apartments can and are taking place in Mountain View after the CSFRA was passed. I've seen new in-unit washer dryers added. I've seen beautiful new stairways up to second-story units added. And all of these, you know, the cutting-edge sword of every improvement is that when there's vacancy decontrol and the next person moves in, that there will be a higher rent charged. The rent control is a imperfect way to control prices. It keeps current people in their apartments, but then the vacancy decontrol changes the price and slowly apartments gentrify. So this, you will be adding to the cost of redeveloping, but you know, so is state law, so is SB 330 adding to the cost of redeveloping. And it's one of the things that the CSFRA guarantees is habitability. So is there a need to totally wipe out older apartments and rebuild them? I would say no. I would say, think about some of the apartments that council members do or have lived in. And there are ways to remodel a certain number of units at a time. So I appreciate the thoughts about flexibility and the landlord comments, and this has taken a while. I wonder when the last community meeting for renter input on this was. I think that was quite a while ago as well. I hope you will move ahead with this. And I think, nothing is perfect, but I think this is an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mina Young.
Hi, my name's Mina Young. I'm the president of Business and Housing Network. We have thousands of small mom and pop owners throughout California, especially in South Bay. We are mainly immigrant and seniors with language barriers. So all these state and local regulations are really putting a big burden on the small mom and pops. And with the proposal today, it's very clear. It's an example that that's why housing stock is collapsing and people are leaving California. We really cannot survive in this environment. With insurance currently, as you know, a lot of insurance companies are leaving California. And actually, they are telling us is the rent regulations adding the costs and premiums, and they're canceling hundreds of thousands, that we can know of. And we have to do a lot more renovation and a lot more stringent renovation work in order to get another insurance coverage. And rentals require additional coverage. And those have doubled. The premium have doubled for us this year. And so think about all these new regulations. They are going to prevent us from owning rentals for mom and pop. We really cannot afford it. Okay, so you are forcing us out. And so please do not do any more of these anti-housing policies. We are just neighbors. You need to consider all sides of the people, not just one side. And the community is divided, and we really cannot afford to handle any more of these unreasonable regulations, burdens, and one-sided bias policies. So please stop that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see any more virtual public comment, so I'm going to turn it to City Attorney Logue.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually just wanted to clarify my response to the question that Councilmember Ramirez asked about administrative guidelines. If the council is interested in having administrative guidelines, I do think that you should provide direction this evening. I reviewed the ordinance and it does mention guidelines, but I think it's different guidelines. So I just wanted to, as you deliberate, to take that into consideration and add that as direction if you wish to.
Great, thank you very much for that clarification. So I am going to bring the item back for council questions and deliberation. And please note that a motion to approve the recommendation should also include reading the title of the ordinance attached to the report. Vice Mayor Ramos.
Thank you, Mayor. I can go deep into each of the amendments. I do not want to push this farther, but I think we could figure our way through to find a good place for all of us. So on a broader level, this is an item that we have committed to in our housing element, and it's because of our residents asking for essentially us to move forward to figuring out. A lot of this came from a lot of the trauma from our demolition projects a few years back. What does it mean for our city to redevelop while ensuring that our tenants who did live in those older properties still get to stay in our community? And so it's a twofold process. One is allowing for the densities that we need in those redevelopments. Two, taking a look at what those specific needs of those tenants to move forward. And that's what staff has kind of proposed to us today. So going through some of these things. So Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 are really more just adjusting to existing state law. Those of SB 330. Those aren't really significant changes that we are really undergoing. It's more of a localizing protection. So like state law already does it, they already have to do it, but we want it localized because we want to ensure our tenants are protected regardless what the state does. For the most part. When we start getting into Amendment 3, the new temporary displacement section, that's where I feel like we can play with some flexibility. I do feel like what staff has is a good start and a good place for us to jump off of. I think that the wiggle room we have is in the administrative procedures, and that's where we can invite the different stakeholders, whether it be the CAA, tenant groups, small landlords, bond, whichever. And that, I think that could actually be a powerful place where we can adjust where it's properly addresses all the issues. And it will provide staff with that kind of flexibility to come up with those administrative procedures. So I am okay with Amendment 3 as it is, with the direction to staff to hold stakeholder meetings to develop those administrative procedures. Amendment 4 relates to the red tag evictions. It is very clear that staff has, that we will be including red tag evictions to TREO, except with one exception of essentially what I like to call acts of God. Where it's like floods, fires, locusts, famine, all the things from the Bible, I guess. But the reason why you would want the red tag eviction to not be completely exempted is that there is a responsibility of the landlord to provide a habitable condition, and when that fails to happen through the actions or lack of actions from the landlord, that should be addressed in a TREO. So I agree with Amendment 4. Amendment 5 is the first right of return. This is interesting because it's also based on state law, and I think the tweaks that we have to it in our local thing is really just more Mountain View focused. We are a very diverse community. We have renters that speak different languages. And this is where the personal touch of sometimes we are a relatively large city or continuing to grow, but we still have a small city heart, and that watches how our residents are individually affected. And those are the touches in Amendment 5 that are mostly SB 330, but have that local touch to it, and I think that is absolutely appropriate. Amendment 6 is probably the most flexible of all of us of where we can move forward. I am supportive of staff's recommendations with the enhanced benefit for low-income families and the moving cost. In the EPC considerations, where is the first consideration? The first consideration I was okay with. It felt that was more administrative because staff, I think staff's not recommending the second one, but the first one, staff had a slightly different recommendation, which I'm perfectly fine with. Oh, in the EPC staff additional enhance the ability of a tenant to monitor the progress of redevelopment projects. So staff recommends including information for the proposed city informational notice for tenants to sign up for project-specific updates. I feel like we don't have to tell them that, but to give them that option to just, when you send out that information, that's easy enough. It was slide 8, page 4 of our packet. The other one, I will follow staff's recommendation. That seems the whole thing about the 50, oh, here we go. The EPC additional consideration was pay tenants a bonus for staying in Mountain View equal to the savings between a 50-mile moving cost and presuming a lower moving cost within Mountain View. This is slide 13. And they say that there are administrative and potentially legal constraints to implementing this idea. I get the reasoning behind that idea. I think I'm just not going to touch that. So I think we'll be okay. I feel like that's one more complicated for both the tenants and the landlords. So we could leave that on the table. And so, yeah, I think I covered most of that. There were some additional considerations. I'm generally fine. Oh, actually, I do like number 3 in the additional clarifications that clarifies the right of refusal to replacement units apply to lower income households displaced by any proposed development project. And that language seems fine with me. Is there any other clarity?
We had to clarify that because the SB 330 was changed last year.
Yes.
So we copied that language.
So yeah, those clarifications I'm okay with. I'm ready to make a motion, and then we could continue on with our discussion with that, if it gets a second. But overall, those are my feelings of this. Yes.
Okay, so you went through everything. I looked through. You're just recommending staff recommendation.
For the most part, yes, but there is a little bit of addition in Amendment 3 about the temporary. And my
so in the staff recommendation, it only included EPC additional consideration 1, and then EPC additional consideration 2 and 3 were not included in the staff recommendation.
Additional consideration 3 has been made to talk about equivalent value for alternative means, but not additional consideration 2.
Yeah, so that's staff recommendation, isn't it?
Yes.
So
oh, I'm
you're the
talking about
same.
in Amendment 3. It's not necessarily mentioned in staff recommendation, but it was mentioned by a lot of the colleagues when they do their administrative procedure, because the city attorney mentioned. Oh, sorry.
Does that need to be included? Or what was that the staff intent? Or
I think, go ahead.
I was just saying that if you wanted to provide direction to adopt the administrative guidelines or administrative procedural guidelines, I think that would be appropriate for this evening because it's not specifically addressed in the ordinance.
Okay.
And my direction to staff that I would like to ask is give the flexibility and create stakeholder opportunities, whether it's a stakeholder meeting group. I'm actually okay with how you want to do that. But this is where we can provide more outreach because it's one of the bigger changes in the amendments. Oh, I could read the resolution. So I move to introduce an ordinance of the City of Mountain View repealing Chapter 36, Article 13, Tenant Relocation Assistance of Mountain View City Code, amending Chapter 46 of Mountain View City Code to change the title and add a new article governing tenant relocation assistance, and finding that these code amendments are not subject to the California Environmental Quality Act to be read in title only, further reading waived, and set a second reading for December 9th, 2025. I will also thank staff for the many.
Can you add in the other part to the motion that you wanted?
Oh, yes, and when developing the administrative procedures for the new temporary displacement section, provide opportunities for stakeholder feedback from our CAA, other local landlord stakeholders, and tenant stakeholders. And I'm happy to give flexibility on that. And thank you, staff, for all the questions that you answered for me. I spent a lot of time with them beforehand to be okay with where we are at.
So we have a motion, but we have no seconds, so that's why we're all standing. Okay, all right. So the item has been seconded by. Sure. Mm-hmm.
I would like to add another provision to the administrative guidelines that we're supposed to talk into this, that we send off to staff, and that would be that through the administrative guidelines, they would develop a cap on moving expenses. I really think the open-ended nature of it is, and the cap would be something along the lines of true expense cost up to whatever the cap is. So it wouldn't be that everybody say it was $6,000. It wouldn't be you just got $6,000. It would be you submitted your invoice for your move, and if it was below $6,000, they'd pay it, and if not, the rest was on you. So something along those lines. Would that be acceptable to the motion maker?
I accept that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the current motion is the staff recommendation with the addition of when developing the administrative guidelines, that there is community outreach to property owners and developers, stakeholder input, and flexibility on when that happens. Or you just said flexibility, so I don't know what.
I mean, I would love the administrative procedures to be reflective of that stakeholder input. So the flexibility, we're not entirely sure what the stakeholders will put in, so I want to give them that flexibility.
Okay. And then, in addition, develop a cap on moving expenses. TBD what those might be. Okay. Next in the queue, Councilmember Hicks.
So I have several questions brought up by the public speakers and also by the motion. So let's see where to start. Do you think that the amendment requested by Councilmember Showalter, that I actually agree with the idea of the cap on moving expenses, that unlimited, can we put a cap on expenses in the administrative guidelines? Is that something that you can see how to do?
We can. We would implement the stakeholder outreach would include developers, tenants, and landlords and get the feedback around and identify a cap.
Okay. Okay. That's one question knocked off. Oh.
Can I just make one suggestion on that? It's fine to put it in the administrative guidelines, but would you mind including in your motion a minor modification to the ordinance that says subject to any caps set forth in the administrative guidelines? Because I'm afraid that the language is a little broad in the ordinance saying moving costs shall be. So we need to reference the other document that would include the limit, if that's okay.
What do you need me to do?
So you can just accept my suggestion. It would just be minor modifications as necessary to the ordinance to reference the cap in the administrative guidelines.
I think before we take the final vote, we can also restate what the motion is with the clean, clarified language. That's why I keep kind of asking questions, because I just, the complexity of the situation, I'm not sure we get it right. So, okay, sorry. Back to you, Councilmember Hicks. Apologies.
That's fine. I appreciate that. I've been mayor before then. Okay, so my next question is, let's see. One of the public speakers brought up something I had not thought of before, that he has tenants subsidized by other agencies. I imagine that's like Section 8 maybe and so forth. And the person doesn't even own the lease. How would that be handled under current proposals? Do we need to modify it in any way? Who would be paid the money? The moving expenses seems obvious, but so the rent doesn't to me. Maybe it is to you.
Yes, thank you. So this wouldn't change from the current TREO either. The intention is that the tenants would have the benefit so that they can actually find replacement housing. If it went to, say, the housing authority, then it's not going to the tenants. So the intention is that the tenants would receive the benefit so they can find the replacement housing. And that would be for the modified TREO as well.
So what I probably don't understand how the programs operate enough. What happens if I've lived in apartments with people who get Section 8, and maybe you explain to me how that happens. It's a portion of their rent is being paid. How does that happen when a person?
That depends on the tenant's income, and then the housing authority defines what extra subsidy they're getting. I mean, we had a tenant who only received $8 a month extra under Section 8, but there are also tenants that almost receive 100% of the rent. So the TREO benefits go to the tenants because the tenants still need to pay for their moving costs, and they still need to find another house where they have to pay first month rent, last month rent, security deposit. The housing authority every year does an income qualification for the tenants, so that money that they receive go towards that income qualification.
And then do they still get their Section 8 while they're moved out, or how does that work with the program? If they're
the
being...
housing authority only provides monthly checks for rents that have actually been established with a lease. So the moment that a tenant finds new housing, then the housing authority will restart paying the rent.
So if they were moved out temporarily and then moved back, they would get that subsidy again when they move back?
Yes. But of course, the housing authority has a lot of guidelines and regulations as well as to what type of housing they can live in and what the maximum amount is of the rent that they can spend.
Okay, so their search is more complicated.
It's pretty complicated because it needs to go to landlords that are working together with the housing authority and that are pre-approved for those rentals.
This may be an area where, with some direction, we may need to also do some additional information gathering about the voucher piece, and if there's some instructions about how to handle this situation that we can also include as part of the administrative guidelines, and whether it's some modified, and maybe where you're thinking about some flexibility to address the situation if there is a voucher situation, any direction that you may have, we can incorporate that into our development of the admin guidelines.
Yeah, I would appreciate that if the motion maker and seconder look fine with that. Okay, that sounds good to me.
City Attorney, yes,
We're just that. Sorry, I was typing.
Because we're working on writing the amended motion. As people are adding things, we're just going to summarize. And so, can you just state again what you'd like them to include?
Yes.
Or perhaps staff can help us assist.
Who would state it?
I'll take a stab. So, in addition to the flexibility discussed on the other items, add to the items of evaluating options for example, project-based voucher holders, and flexibility about the relocation assistance amounts, and receive feedback and incorporate those into the guidelines.
Yes, that was what I was hoping for. And then, okay, we did the unlimited expenses. I thought that Councilmember Ramos did a good job of summing up the 6 amendments and which ones were related to SB 330 and which ones were not. I'm wondering from staff, it seems like some of the flexibility, there's a number of things we want flexibility on when we're incorporating them and further stakeholder input, and we're putting those into administrative guidelines. There's also some that I feel there may be less flexibility available than maybe some stakeholders are hoping because of SB 330. In particular, Councilmember Ramos named amendments number 1, 2, and 5 being related to SB 330. So I guess my question of staff is, how much do you think there's room for change, and how much is it more education that's needed? Education on the fact that because of state law, there's not really a lot of room for change in some areas of this. In particular, numbers 1, 2, and 5.
Definitely, and we can discuss those when we have the stakeholder meetings for the guidelines. The flexibility mostly was addressed with regards to the temporary relocation, if I remember correctly, and that part is not subject to SB 330, so we can locally have these discussions.
Okay, so just then my statement is that I am hoping that, I guess we've in some ways moved beyond this. I'm hoping we do not have a continuation, that we can put as much done, that we can get it done tonight and put the things that we want input on into administrative guidelines. That's my hope. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Clark.
Thanks. I appreciate the administrative guidelines piece. I think some of these things really should, if I were a staff member, I would not want to be the person deciding what the cap on moving costs is. And I think it's unfair to them to do that. And so to your point, I understand not wanting to kick the can down the road. I came prepared with some suggested amendments in those respects that I think will hopefully address some of the concerns that were raised. And I just want to start at the 50,000 foot level. Thank you to staff for getting us to this point. I wasn't on council when this started. I did watch the December meeting roughly a year ago. With respect to moving and other costs, I think there was a majority to explore that and cost that out, but not a commitment from 4 people to absolutely include moving costs at any income level or anything like that. And that made sense. So I think I appreciate all the work that's been done, and I think a large percentage of what's being presented to us in terms of aligning with SB 330 and all those other things makes sense, and I'm perfectly fine with that. There's a couple items that I think frankly, just times have changed in the last 18 months where 330 is permanent, or I don't think there's any risk of that going away anytime soon. I think we've undertaken an effort as a council to try and reduce housing costs to the extent that we can, whether it's reducing the fees that we charge at the expense of things we love, like parks. But I think we need to be, we also need to think about the other costs that we're passing on, because we think a lot in terms of redevelopment because of Rock Street and other trauma that we have. But with 90 days or less, which is a big focus of this, you're really talking about flooring, kitchen remodels, things that we want people to do over time, and we don't, and it's not going in and completely redeveloping something. And I think it's to everyone's benefit that those occur over time, and it's also good to have some protections in there. So with that said, I just want to highlight the things that I had planned to suggest here, and I'm happy to do, if we want to do a substitute motion or something like that, we can. But it really, I just wanted to address three big things. One is the way that it's written. This is more of a minor thing, but I think it could become a thing. There's a way to double dip here that I noticed, where if you, let's say you're doing that kitchen remodel, it's roughly planned to occur for 90 days. You take advantage of the temporary relocation. You move to, I don't know, choose your city, Cupertino or Sunnyvale temporarily. And you get to day 60, you've got your temporary relocation benefits already. You get to day 60 and you realize, actually, I'm a little closer to work now and this works better for me. I'd like to make this permanent. In that case, there's a loophole in here which allows you to not only take the temporary relocation you've gotten, but now you can qualify for permanent relocation, which is even on top of that. And so I think in that case, it's fine that people make that decision. I just think that you shouldn't be able to double dip. You should just subtract you should get the permanent amount, just minus the temporary that you've already gotten, so that there's, just so it doesn't create this weird incentive for people to basically lie and say, I'm temporarily relocating, when in the back of their mind, they're maybe thinking about a permanent relocation. That's a minor thing. I have language for that. It's just a paragraph. It's just clarifying the language and eliminating that loophole. The other minor clarification is just that the reimbursement for moving costs, I don't know how we came up with 50 miles, but I'm not going to argue over it. Just that it would be based on the actual distance that they're moving, and that we would put, I agree with the folks who mentioned a cap. I wanted to suggest, if we're doing 50 miles, I think it's unfair to staff to have them decide that based on stakeholder input. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. And I think that 5,000 each way, 50 miles, that's $100 a mile. If you move within Mountain View and you have a really expensive move with an art piece, fine, 5,000. It's just a 10,000 cap in total, right? And that can adjust with CPI. There's language in the ordinance already that would tie things to CPI. So whether 10,000 is the right number or not, I don't know, but I think it's better for us to decide whenever we're introducing this ordinance than it is to force staff to make a tough decision and endure the wrath of whoever they have to deal with. And then so that's the second thing. The third thing is when I think this was first looked at, there was a worry about 330 going away. I think that's mostly subsided. And so I think what we can do is greatly simplify this by saying the moving benefits, the relocation and moving benefits apply to the CSFRA units and the mobile home rent stabilization covered units. So the units where you're going to have most of the folks who will feel the greatest impact from this, and not have not have our local thing try and trump SB 330, which provides protections for all the market rate units and the people making $200,000-$300,000 a year. So rather than worry about that, I think we focus on having this cover CSFRA and MHRSO and let 330, which can be amended over time, cover all the non-CSFRA units just as it does today. So that way we aren't dabbling in, do I live in a CSFAR unit or not? If I don't, then I get these moving costs, but I don't get these other things. It just becomes really difficult to administer. And I don't see a need right now to cover the people in a market rate unit that isn't covered by rent control to have to deal with. I wouldn't want to have to administer this for all those units. I think if we stay within our CSFRA framework and the mobile homes, I think that makes sense. So that's a long way of saying it's actually a pretty simple thing. I think the duplicate payment loophole is very easy to close. Setting a moving cost cap at whatever we feel is appropriate, I think we should do that. If we're going to pass the ordinance tonight, I think we should do that tonight. I don't think we should put that on staff. And I'm open to whatever number people come up with. I think 10,000 total is fine, but that's just me. And then I think that we should just limit all of this to the CSFRA and MHRSO covered units to simplify everyone's lives. And I have a paragraph about that too. I shared this with the city attorney in advance so that we would have the language that we could, if people didn't want to continue this or kick the can down the road, we would have language to insert. But I'm very hesitant to try and put any of this in the administrative guidelines where there's a decision that someone has to make that's going to be very uncomfortable for them as a staff member. I think we should make those decisions and we should bear the brunt of whatever criticism comes from that, not the staff members, in fairness. So as a long way of saying I can't support the motion that's on the table. I'm happy to either let folks vote on that or I'll make a substitute motion, but that's, but I'm also curious to hear what others think. But, all right, they're pretty significant friendly amendments, but if we want to do that, that's fine. But I'm open to however the best way to do it is. But I just think that's probably the best path forward if we want to move forward tonight. Which, by the way, we've met our housing element obligation. We have reviewed the TREO. We've evaluated the efficacy of the TREO. It doesn't say we actually have to pass anything by December 31st. But so I think we've met our obligations there. There's no ticking clock on this one. If SB 330 were expiring, then there would be a ticking clock. But anyway, I've said my piece. I'll let someone else speak.
Okay. So I didn't hear, and staff can help me, I didn't hear a formal substitute motion. So I'm just going to continue with the motion on the floor. And I am going to go to Councilmember McAllister and those who are in the queue.
Yeah, if someone else wants to make the substitute, they can. I want to be deferential to my colleagues who want to speak.
So I think because there's folks that haven't had the opportunity to lean in. So I think before we start making further mixing, why don't we hear from folks and then we can, once everyone's had the opportunity, then we can get back to if we want to make tweaks, edits, et cetera. Okay, Councilmember McAllister.
Thank you. So I have a question for the city attorney. The path we're going down tonight concerns me about we're making ordinances, but we're not using real data. So with this administrative procedure, if the ordinance is passed and the language is in there, the administrative procedures, when they're saying, well, we'll bring in input from the ownership side, will that be able to override what's in the ordinance?
No, it will not. It would have to be consistent with the ordinance. So you're correct.
Okay.
No, it will not override it. The ordinance will trump anything in the administrative guidelines to the extent that it conflicts.
Okay, with that being said, I'll make my comments very short. I cannot support this motion. I'm not, I say, comfortable how we're doing this, so we're just making the law, and it's, well, this sounds good, this one, without bringing the input of the third party, who's the landlords. I would support continuance. Thank you, Councilmember Clark, for saying we've met our obligations, and this is not good governance. To going down this path, saying, well, staff can do that, we're going to tweak this, going to tweak that. I think this is so important that we have to do a better job of due diligence, listen to who's out there. If I was out there and there were 6 new amendments come along and I hadn't had an input and I'm the one that's going to be paying the cost, I would be very upset. Remember, the landlord community is our partners. They're the ones that own them. They're the ones that bring them in code. They supply the housing. So I think we do owe them some due diligence. There is a good point about 330. That covers a lot of stuff, but that's where I'm going right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of good, thoughtful comments from members of the council. I could not support a continuance because the bulk of the ordinance simply implements or reflects the SB 330 requirements in the municipal code. I think there are points of discretion unrelated to SB 330 where I agree with Councilmember Clark. We should spend the time to figure out what makes sense and advance the ordinance. Perhaps in a future council, it might be good to have a formal stakeholder engagement and outreach policy. I think it's a best practice, and when we don't do it, or if we don't do it adequately, then we end up with more challenging meetings than we really need. So I do think that's something we should reflect on. In some cases, we've done, I think, a significant amount of outreach, sometimes to the point where I get very frustrated. But I think there should be some baseline expectation, and I think a future council ought to consider deliberating that. I did want to, I don't want to totally try and reiterate what Councilmember Clark was suggesting, but I think there were some good, thoughtful suggestions. And if you weren't going to make the friendly amendment effort, then I'm happy to on your behalf. I think the first one had something to do with, I'm sorry? Oh yeah, so it was language to address the potential double dipping issue. So if you wouldn't mind reading that language, I think that would, so it's sort of like a surrogate council member, right? I'm happy to make the friendly amendment on your behalf, but I think that suggestion makes sense.
Yeah, for everyone's benefit. And this was what I sent to the city attorney. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be modified, but it's essentially, it's in section, well, I won't read the section, but basically it's saying that if the tenant voluntarily, if they've been temporarily relocated and they elect voluntarily not to return for reasons other than the landlord's failure to complete the project in a timely manner, so they're of their own free will deciding not to return, any temporary relocation assistance that was previously paid gets credited toward the permanent relocation payment. So they're not combining the two. They still get the total permanent relocation amount. They just don't get to stack them. But if the landlord's actions or delay causes the unit to become unavailable for reoccupancy, then the tenant's entitled to the full permanent relocation benefit and the temporary, because it's not their fault. They're basically being forced to permanently relocate after having thought that they were only temporarily relocating. Right.
Thank you.
That's one. The other is, the tricky one is the cap on the moving costs.
Well, let's one at a time. One at a time.
We'll go back to that. And then the bigger one is basically just adding a subsection to the permanent relocation assistance applicability and saying that the relocation assistance and moving costs provisions in this article are only going to apply to income qualified tenant households residing in dwelling units covered by the CSFRA, and the mobile home stabilization ordinance, relocation obligations for non-CSFRA and non-mobile home units are covered by state law, including but not limited to SB 330 and the LS Act. So it's basically just excluding, if you're in a CSFRA unit or a mobile home stabilization ordinance unit, you're covered by this, and we're just not dealing with anyone who isn't covered by those two things. We're letting 330 govern all that.
I'll get to 3 at the conclusion, but so going one at a time, would the maker of the motion be comfortable with the language that Councilmember Clark read that would address the potential double dipping issue?
And just so we don't waste anyone's time, I feel very strongly about that last one. So regardless of the friendly amendments accepted, I will vote no if we try and cover non-CSFRA units with this. That's a big deal to me.
Heard loud and clear.
All right, so we could start by this one by one. The 90 days to,
For the sake of clarity, yeah.
I did want clarification from staff. I guess the bigger issue is properly determining whether the decision of that being from a temporary relocation to a permanent relocation, how do we ensure that it is in the case of Councilmember Clark's suggestion by way of Councilmember Ramirez, the suggestion is if the tenant decides in their temporary relocated place that's what they want to be permanent, how do we ensure that it's the tenant's decision and not due to a landlord action?
So if, for instance, a landlord says, I have a 60-day remodeling project, you have to be temporarily replaced for 60 days. Mm-hmm. If after 60 days the project is not done, that's not a voluntary decision that you're going to be permanently displaced. That is just the landlord's part of. And I understand we want to talk about the flexibility of that timeline still, but that was not a tenant voluntarily decision to move out permanently. That was due to the circumstances.
And the Vice Mayor, just to confirm, I think you're referring to a situation where that is not the situation and a tenant is choosing to move out voluntarily. I think we'll develop some procedures around that. Maybe there's some documentation that can occur that verifies that it's voluntarily determined by the tenant and not due to the situation of the landlord.
Or any other things that could have led to that. Okay, so yeah, as long as that's put in place, I'm okay with that first one. For the second one, it was the adding cap. You threw out $5,000. It kind of reminds
each way. Sorry. So total of 10.
A total of 10. It does remind me of back when I was on the RHC, and I had a colleague, former Mayor Means. He was very fond of trying to avoid back of the envelope calculation. I'm just like, oh no.
I did just some of those numbers. I based them on some of the numbers in the staff report or some of the moving estimates. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's going to depend on mileage, but you're right. I did. Yeah.
So, I guess what we could do is make sure that a cap that we give is higher than an estimated cap that staff may presume to have. That's one way to do it, so it doesn't get ridiculous. I know we talked about the piano situation, but God forbid a girl have hobbies. But I guess I hate to put staff on the spot for this, but do you feel like that is an... Oh, okay, go ahead, Mayor.
Well, because I feel, rather than back and forth on, can staff evaluate and come back to council with numbers so that council can see some actual data and analysis? Or not? That's what I was going to ask. Or do you just want us to set a number tonight?
Well, I don't like kicking this down the road. That's my own.
I don't think anyone's kicking anything down the road. I think these are worthwhile questions because, as you were just saying, doing back of the napkin, guessing, legislating from the dais, as Councilmember McAllister was saying, we just need to, I think it's just prudent to, if we're going to give a number, and then I think Councilmember Clark was saying, we could adjust it with CPI. I just want us to be choosing a number that, right?
I mean, overall, that's why I allowed staff to have that flexibility to decide what was kind of best, so they didn't have to come back to us. But I know that Councilmember Clark was concerned of putting essentially that burden on staff. So, I trust staff to give me a number. I don't expect them to give me a number today, but I do want the temporary displacement section of amendment. I do believe in that concept.
Yeah, so I'm just asking staff, can we move forward and adopt tonight and you can come back to us with a number, or is that not possible? We need to decide tonight. That's the question.
I'm sorry. I was being
no problem.
Question. Did you ask me?
No. Just looking at staff. I mean, I think I understand the perspective and the points of view that folks are sharing. As I mentioned, I'm not trying to kick any can. I just am trying to do due diligence and be prudent as we're having this discussion that is going to affect people's lives, right? And so I am, asking, should we go forward and adopt tonight? And we're making all these various amendments. I'm just curious if that's, kind of come back to council once that, I don't, whether that's on an off agenda memo or other, I'm just trying to understand how we can move forward, but maybe get a little bit more substance to this decision that we're making on moving costs.
Yeah, I guess in theory, we could still pass Amendment 3 and get and then vote on a cap at a future date.
Well, it's going to come back as a second reading.
That's true.
Right? So could at the second reading that's in there, I'm trying to find the wiggle room as well there and looking to staff. And we can...
I guess the question is, Councilmember Clark, did you want the cap to be part of the ordinance itself?
I think it really needs to be. Or if it's going to be the administrative guidelines, then we need to dictate it. But I think it really should be in the ordinance because then it's tied to CPI instead of just flat. Another option is this is already scheduled for a second meeting in December, and I promise I'm not just trying to kick the can, but what we could do is give staff the time to still bring this back to us at December 9th. It would just be, it could still even be on consent with our feedback now. And then we're really not pushing it out that far. I don't know if the second reading would still occur in December. I'm thinking of the meetings, maybe it would. But at least it's still getting done, and then we're not trying to dot I's and cross T's at the dais. But that's up to you all. I think that's probably the better way to go, is just to give everyone the time to redo it and bring the first reading to us when this was scheduled for a second reading, and then it still gets done in roughly the same timeline, maybe a few weeks later. But
if I could just provide some feedback. The item of moving costs is, like many other items, a series of trade-offs. And if the council can provide perhaps some principles, I hear balance. We want to address the moving cost of tenants, but cap it so that it can be a more feasible amount, and there's some clarity that landlords can expect, right? Just some context, other cities do have it open-ended, and we have attempted to provide a cap through the 50 miles, but what I'm hearing is that may not, there may be another way that council is looking for us to recommend, and we can do thinking after this to bring it back on December the 9th. If there's any additional principles that you may have for us to factor it in. There are also schedules that I think are published by the Federal Transportation Administration. Those are for situations where there's costs that a like a governmental agency would be paying in certain relocation situations. And so there are publicly available schedules, but not exactly for this type of situation. But those could be things that we can look at to have an objective standard. So yeah, I think if what you're saying is there may indeed be a cap and it won't cover all the tenant costs, we can take that, and trying to find a more clarity and perhaps a lower amount or some set amount. We can certainly take that and provide a recommendation. It would be hard to do something right now just because it is a lot of trade-offs.
So what does that mean for Amendment 3? We would still move forward with Amendment 3 and staff would?
I think one option is what the city attorney's office said, was to add a language under the moving cost section to say subject to, you had a better way of saying it, city attorney, to what would be promulgated through the guidelines. That's one way. Another way would be to provide perhaps a figure when we come back on December the 9th.
So that's correct. We could have a reference in the ordinance to the guidelines, and when it comes back on December 9th, staff could be prepared to bring a figure. Problem is it was going to come back on consent, so if you'd want to talk about that number, right, you wouldn't want it on consent. It'd have to be pulled so you could have discussion. You could also have it come back on the 9th, be adopted, and as they're working on the guidelines, they come back at a future meeting to talk to you about that number before it gets put in the guidelines. So not necessarily bringing the entire guidelines back, but come back and talk to you about the cap.
So I think, Vice Mayor, so there were 3 items via Councilmember Ramirez. So I think we went through item 1, which you were there was willingness to include in the current motion. So we're on item 2. So is there given the discussion at hand and the staff advisement, is there a willingness of you as the motion maker to include the suggestion via Councilmember Ramirez, via Councilmember Clark on the cap?
I mean, I feel more comfortable with the second option when they come back with some kind of administrative guidelines, and then we can have a cap there. I don't know if that is what Councilmember Clark was looking for via Councilmember Ramirez, because he mentioned he wanted it in the motion, in the ordinance.
I personally think that's the best place for it. If staff thinks it can be in if staff thinks that the ordinance can reference a cap that's in the administrative guidelines, and we have input on what that number is ultimately, then that's fine with me. My real goal is, I don't think staff can recommend things, but I think we should be the ones to decide what the right number is, and I don't know what that is. But I think the cap is important because if it's unlimited, there's no incentive for the person moving to control any sort of costs, right? It's just I want the 5-star moving service, and I want the white glove everything, and that's fine if you're moving 10 miles and you have $5,000 to play with, and have at it. But if you're moving 50 miles, I just think there should be some limit.
And you're okay with that methodology that I mentioned? They'll come back with the administrative. We mentioned the cap in the ordinance, that there will be a cap.
Yeah, and that it will adjust based on CPI. I think that's important too. It shouldn't just be fixed in time.
Okay.
That piece, we haven't tackled the bigger thing, but yeah, that's
I know.
the.
I'm kind of dreading the third piece, but so yes, I accept Councilmember Clark's via Councilmember Ramirez's amendment to add on that there will be a cap displayed through the administrative guidelines, and this doesn't have to be in the motion in the ordinance itself, but it is an expectation that staff will bring back at the administrative guidelines to us with options for a cap.
My understanding was that the ordinance would reference the cap, and then the cap would be in the administrative guidelines. That was my understanding. Okay, that's, yeah, okay. That's.
If I may,
yeah.
so, yes,
Yes,
that is accurate. But the second part, which I really do appreciate what Councilmember Clark is saying about not putting it on staff to make the final decision on the cap, is that you'd be directing staff to come back with the recommendation for the cap that would be included in the administrative guidelines.
Yes.
It's not necessary to bring back the full set of administrative guidelines, which are going to be a bunch of procedures and processes, but just focus on bringing back the cap that we would recommend be included, and then you as the council would make that final decision on that cap amount.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Councilmember Ramirez, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or?
Yes, on the third point. So I think we might have a disagreement about the applicability of the two laws, SB 330 and TREO, which is in part why I was asking staff at the beginning of the meeting to help me understand where one applies and where the other applies. So my understanding is if we're covering just CSFRA and MHRSO, SB 330 would be the applicable law, right? And then TREO would cover things that SB 330 does not include. So if we have TREO apply only to what you've described, then it's already overridden by SB 330, and then we would lose protections for those instances of displacement where SB 330 does not apply. And I'm curious if that's actually what you're trying to achieve.
I think the provisions in SB 330 and the Ellis Act are sufficient to cover market rate units. I don't think our TREO, sorry, not the TREO. I think the relocation assistance and moving cost provisions in the TREO should just not apply to market rate units. I think there's already 330 language covering that, and I think it's overkill. I don't think someone making $250,000 in a market rate unit needs moving assistance to have their unit upgraded.
So we might be talking past each other. So SB 330, those protections only happen in a redevelopment.
Right.
So I think what Councilmember Ramirez is concerned about, and what I was slightly concerned about, is the protections of TREO protections for people who are not displaced for a no-fault eviction that are not due to redevelopment.
Right.
So
I feel like, can someone give me an example of when?
Can we also bring up the Alice Act is withdrawal from the rental market. So if a property owner does not want to demolish a project, but he just wants to withdraw from the rental market, that's an Alice Act eviction. And those are currently covered under the TREO. But those are not SB 330 cases.
And I just think that's a risk you take when you rent a market rate unit.
So they are currently covered right now with our TREO, though. Does that mean you want to take away their TREO rights of those who are currently covered?
I think I would rely on 330 in the Ellis Act.
I guess, sorry.
It's all right. Yeah. So I maybe we can, it sounds like you do not want to include item 3 that Councilmember Clark suggested. So I think just for, and rather than, and that's fine. So I think if there's any more questions related to that, then I just need to make sure that the seconder is okay with that as we continue. Right? So it's you as the motion maker, and then I have to go to the seconder to make sure, and then we need to clarify the motion that's on the floor. But unless you have more that you, because
So I do need to check with Councilmember Showalter on whether she accepts that one and he gave 3, so like there's one.
So we're still, I'm just trying to wrap up number 3. So,
Okay.
So is there, I think there might be different perspectives. And so that's all right. It's
I just want to make it work.
Yeah, I think that everyone up here wants to make it work. I think that the Treo, the amendment that we would make is still, hold on, sorry, let me go. It's the 80%, or we're taking the staff recommended the right of first refusal. Where's it? Okay, here we go. So we're talking about like the entirety of Treo, or the amending Treo to include Group 1 as part of the special circumstances? Because is it the AMI? I'm just, like, I hear what you're saying, because the AM...
Sorry, this is where I'm trying to get the understanding.
Yeah.
Is it because of the income levels that you want to?
It's the lack of means testing.
Okay.
So that's why it says the relocation assistance and moving cost provisions in this article. Those two things don't apply to the non-CSFRA units. But if staff or you have a more creative way of, I think if you're in a market rate unit, you sign up for a month-to-month, a year-long lease, whatever. After that, you've made a choice that you're okay with uncertainty beyond that. And I just, especially without means testing, I just don't think we should be offering.
Are you just referring to the moving costs then? Because all the other benefits.
The relocation and moving cost provisions.
But relocations are already means tested.
Then that's
just for the permanent one, not for the temporary one.
I see.
So for the permanent relocation, it is means tested with the 120% AMI plus 5,000. That's already existing in the Treo. The only other thing that we propose on top of that is not means tested is the temporary replacement clause and just the moving costs. So instead you could say, I want the moving cost also be means tested, if that's your concern.
That would be fine, or just not applicable to non-CSRA units. I just don't want to add, I don't want to add any benefits to non-CSFRA units that don't already exist. That's my goal.
Okay.
Through this.
So you don't want the moving costs for non-CSFRA MHRSO units?
If they don't get them today, I don't think we should add them.
Well, then that's
That's my opinion, yeah.
I'm not going to accept that amendment, and I think we're okay with that. I do believe that also means that protection wouldn't apply to affordable housing units because they're exempt from the CSFRA. Things like that. That's covered units. Oh, protected units.
So the CSFRA is not applicable to 100% subsidized housing, so those then also would be excluded from the moving cost reimbursement.
But they're covered by 330, because 330 covers. I see. Yeah, this is why we shouldn't do all this tonight. Sorry, well, I misunderstood some of this
so,
too.
Yeah, okay. Then they're not covered by the Treo, but then they might be covered by SB 330 in certain circumstances.
Yeah. I think my intent is just not to provide a new set of benefits. I'm okay with existing. I don't want to provide a new set of benefits to market rate units.
As you think about that, can I look at the housing director? I look like you might say something, or no? Well, I mean, and as you're thinking, would you be willing to include means testing for the temporary ones that because staff mentioned the permanent ones are means tested. It might be an opportunity to, perhaps that's a way to thread a bit of the needle. Yeah, I think that if the vice mayor is open to that, I think it's a way to thread the needle, and then we can say we've mean tested both as we're having dialogue with our community.
I'm just not sure I'm particularly into that.
Okay, well, I'm just asking.
No, it's
that
a good
seems like it was
question.
an important element for Councilmember Clark, so we're just asking the vice mayor.
Yeah. I mean, my question is, I'm
so sorry. May I finish? Sure. To see if the where the vice mayor is landing on this, and then I need to go to the seconder, and then I'd love to speak. I haven't had a chance to speak yet. I mean, I'm speaking, but not on the item, and then we can go for second bites. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I knew that we were like talking past each other, so now I'm getting a better sense of what you were asking for, and it's less horrifying to me. So that's good. Well, I mean, like,
so okay,
is that not included in CSFRA? It's like affordable housing units. I do feel like I would somewhat be open, but I don't actually think I like it. So I'm willing to hear from other colleagues. I don't know if I need to make a decision right now as we say, yes,
So we're, okay, well, let me just, thank you. We'll move on to the seconder. So are you open to the 2 amendments, additional amendments that the vice mayor made to the motion? So I think that was.
This has gotten confusing.
Sure. Why don't I check in with staff? They'll read the motion as it stands now.
Why don't you? That would be helpful.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Mayor, it would be helpful at this point if staff could have a 5-minute break, and we'll pull this together.
Okay,
in
sure.
terms of what we believe we have heard the maker of the motion has supported, including in the motion.
Yeah, and I'll share what I heard because I was taking notes. So I heard that it was the staff recommendation. It was also support for, just want to make sure I read it correctly. Actually, I think this is the best. And then the staff recommendation, including the EPC additional consideration 1, enhance the ability of tenants to monitor the progress of development projects. And it was also an inclusion of it was EPC additional consideration 3 is what I wrote.